Hi everybody, welcome to MJ Comix. I'm your host James Mack, and tonight I'm joined by a very good friend of mine. I'm joined by Manu, the 9.9 Newsstand. Manu, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much for having me back, my friend. How are you this evening for you, but
It,
today?
yeah, I'm extremely excited about tonight's stream. To be honest, it's
Yeah,
kind of transformed a bit over the past couple of days.
it has,
So
hasn't it?
it has, and yeah, I'm really happy to be sharing this experience with you, my good friend.
My pleasure indeed. I'm very happy about it as well. We have friends with us in the chat already. Matt, what's going on? Jason, hello. Danny, hello. Vince, hello. Eggplant, hello. I am at a bit of disadvantage yet again. For some reason, YouTube is not showing me the chats on the device that I rely on, but I do have them. So if I miss anything, please forgive me. I am paying attention, however. But yeah, hello to our friends.
Thank you everybody for joining. If you do have any questions this evening, I'll dig them out of the chat, put a star on them, and then we can come back to them at a later time. So don't worry about it being missed out. But we've got
Okay,
Jason
perfect.
Park in the house. Thank you for joining us.
Perfect. And I think while we wait for RMS, what up? JSS Brooklyn, hello, my friend. How are you? While we wait for some more friends to come in, let's just really quickly just talk about, the intention of today's stream was to kind of talk about, oh, I like the setup, the new setup.
So,
The intention of today's stream was to talk about the updates from PSA, how
yeah,
far along they are, what they've done in terms of changing things after the initial feedback when they released the prototype and made their announcement, so on and so forth. And I've been in communication with them and wanting to communicate some of that messaging to our, friends in the community. And interestingly enough, I felt compelled the other day to mention what I'd been hearing for several weeks and months now about these sort of damaged, bent books. And it was to
yep,
my surprise that so many of our friends hadn't heard about it. And
yeah,
and the next, and I began to exchange voice notes with people, send information to people, and just talk to people. And then the next day, being yesterday, Ron, the Palm Beach comic book presser. Is it the Palm Beach presser? It's the Palm Beach presser, I believe it
Palm
is.
Beach. Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
And he's with us and he's backstage, and we're not going to keep him there too long. We'll bring him in because he's got a lot to share with us. And
yep.
I saw his post, and what a moving post, right? To actually come out, and I'll read the email as well. There's an email that supports his post, but basically he had noticed the same thing a lot of pressers and a lot of graders and collectors had been noticing. And he decided to take a step in the direction of really creating awareness for it, but maybe the consequence of what he's done might slow down his business a bit because his
Yeah,
customers press with him to submit for grading. And one of the recommendations he made in his messages and in his emails was that maybe some people should consider not submitting for a while because this is a real problem. A high percentage of submissions are coming back with this issue, this concern, and we're going to talk about that in detail. And so, like I said, Ron is with us, and this stream was supposed to be about PSA updates, but this kind of becomes a PSA update because I mentioned comic book grading has been a little messy lately, and that might be a really good thing, a really great opportunity, great timing for PSA. So CGC doing things to maybe potentially damage some of or tarnish some of their
yep.
reputation just does a favor for PSA or any company looking to enter the space. So we'll connect those dots some more. But right before we get Ron in here, I think I
Um,
want to read this email
yeah,
if that's okay. And
yeah. That's good. I'll bring it up on screen in a second. But I just wanted to say that
yes, please. Sorry.
I think, like you mentioned, that not many people were aware of this. I was literally not aware of this until you messaged me the other day. Um, Probably because I've been too busy. Like, there's other stuff going on in the comic book community.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's kind of like really took over. But this is really like a heavy subject. Like, it's bad news, I think.
I agree with you. I think there's a lot of ramifications. I just think it's really important for us to know what's happening, right? There are some collectors that might not pay that much attention and they might not notice something on their book, didn't see it in the right lighting. But if they ever go to sell that book and if it goes to a more obsessed sort of collector the way I
Yeah,
am, I'm going to notice that right away. And then I'm going to take that up with the seller. But it's not the seller's problem. The problem is starting at CGC, and that's kind of where it needs to be addressed. I mean, obviously, we all have to take accountability for what we sell and what we represent. But at the
yeah,
end of the day, we are trusting CGC to provide a service and they're not providing that service. So This is an email that Ron, the Palm Beach presser, sent out to his customers. And you could read it along on the screen, and I'll do my best to read this without any hiccups. And it says, "Dear customer, this is an email that I wish I did not have to send, as I fully recognize that it will likely have a significant impact on my own business and financial success. But I feel that I have an obligation to my customers and the community to bring this to your attention because I first heard of the problem less than 2 weeks ago. So you may not be aware of it." So even Ron heard about the problem only 2 weeks ago. That's how little this has spread so far, because this actually
Yep.
goes back several months. We'll catch up to that in a second. He goes on to say, "It has been documented that some inner plastic wells are bowing within the hard outer case. This is evident by the top and bottom of the wells touching the front of the plastic, but the center of the inner well containing the comic book pushing into the back plastic case." So the well is essentially taking the shape of a banana. "The result is that new spine creases and sometimes even color breaks are occurring on some books. According to CGC Forum, the problem may have been occurring since May of this year, and based upon a submission that I received recently of 18 modern books last week and 25 yesterday, I can confirm that the problem continues at an unacceptable frequency. In my personal opinion, in my own personal
Experience.
experience, at least 6 books had high 9.8 or 9.6 grades, but had new, significant, and sometimes numerous spine creases. It appears that CGC is aware of the problem, but has not made any public comment and is only taking responsibility on a case-by-case basis, which is completely unacceptable in my opinion. Accordingly, it may be in your interest to delay any CGC submissions until the problem is rectified. As you know, I take great pride in my work on your books, which leaves me with serious concerns that damages caused by CGC may reflect negatively in your satisfaction for my work product. My reputation as a skilled and reputable presser and your ultimate satisfaction far outweighs my short-term financial concerns. For further information on this issue, you can contact me or review the CGC forum discussion regarding this problem." And then it's linked here, and you can find that link in the caption of this video as well. There are many dozens of pages worth of information there. Well, many dozens of posts, probably pages and pages of information. And then this email concludes by saying, "I thank you for choosing me as your pressing source. I have attached photos of some of the books that I received from my recent submission. Hopefully this new CGC controversy is resolved shortly and before I go out of business." So sincerely, Ron Mobilia, and he'll correct me if I pronounce that incorrectly, the Palm Beach presser. And he could be found at palmbeachpresser.com. His phone number is included in the email. If you reach out to him directly, he'll forward you the email. You could have that contact information. And then there are some pictures included. James, do we want to look at the pictures really quickly, and then we'll bring Ron in?
Yeah, of course. Yep. So we've got this first one here, which is Elephant Man issue number 18.
Okay, and you can see here that spine tick there, where once
Yeah.
this book was pressed, I presume it's laying flat. You would only see that spine tick if you knew to look for it. But with this curve in the book, it exaggerates the dip, it
Yep.
exaggerates the way that it catches the light. So it's very prominent there. So that's one of the examples. What else do we have from him?
We have an Amazing Spider-Man 607.
And there you can see the white tick and the sort of valley that goes with it towards the
Yep.
lower left. And let's take a look at the next.
We have Swamp Thing issue number 49. You
And
can
this, you can
see
see a lot of what appears to be waviness, but it's not
yep,
waviness. It's these dips, created by the curve being put
the
into the book.
banana effect.
And you might look at a flat scan of one of these books, not notice it, and then you buy the book and you get the book home and you're handling it and it's taking on different sorts of reflection, and then you're going to be upset because that is not how a high grade book is supposed to represent itself.
What you've got to think about it is that Ron does a fantastic job on a book. It gets submitted to CGC. It
Hmm.
comes back, and then the customer gets hold of the book, looks at it, and thinks Ron's done a terrible job. That's
I
the
know.
that's the heartbreaking thing about it. Is if the first thing you're going to look at is going to thinking the book is like hasn't been, it looks terrible.
That's going to be the first thought. They're going to be like, did this book even get pressed? And
Yeah.
it reflects poorly on the job done by the presser. In this case, it could reflect poorly on our friend Ron. And that is something that he is concerned about, as he should be. And CGC needs to not allow that to happen. That's crazy. But we will take a look at more pictures, and let's introduce Ron to the chat here, and let's just bring him on, and then yeah.
Welcome, Ron, to the channel.
Good evening, gentlemen. My gosh, that introduction was, I don't know what I could say. I mean, that was, you've covered everything already, and you did it in such a way that I'm not sure I can add anything. Really, guys, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure having you, and I want to let our friends know that it's become very apparent to me that you as a professional, you as a person, do really regard your reputation in a very serious light, as you should. And you are definitely in the business of pressing physical items, but you've said it yourself, you're in the customer service business. Customer satisfaction, those relationships, how satisfied they are with the service you provide means a lot to you. And that's why this really hits home. So if anybody wants to utilize the pressing services of Ron, all of his contact information will be made available. But Ron, we do want to hear from you. James, do you have any, do you want to start off what we might discuss with Ron today?
Yeah, so Ron, what you say you first became aware of this around roughly 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
How was that brought to your attention?
It was brought to my attention by a customer who wanted to do a submission to CGC. And he emailed me first. He said, you know, I'm about to send a batch of books, but I become aware of this from the CGC forums. And he asked if I knew anything about it. He sent me the link. And at that time, I had not heard anything about it. So, you know, I have to thank him for bringing it to my attention. I looked at the link, and, you know, I took it with a grain of salt, you know, because we all hear of people saying, oh, my book was a 9.8. My book was this, you know, that tick wasn't here, you know, and you have to, you know, there are certain people who are not as experienced in the hobby as others, and they think every book can be a 9.8. You know, they don't see things that are, you know, are held under the extreme light that we are, you know, in magnification, that we look over a book. And I look over every single book before I send it out. When I'm doing my invoice, I put an estimated grade on every book, what they should expect from CGC for that book. Now, other pressers don't do that as far as I know, but it's guaranteeing to the customer that I actually have pressed your book. I've looked at your book. It has been pressed to the point that it has reached its maximum improvement potential. So, you know, I'm well aware of what was on each book that goes out. You know, sure, I do 100, 150 books a week, and I don't remember them all, but I look at my notes again, and I go, okay, you know, and I list the problems that the book had. You know, soft spine corners, you know, slight one tier, you know, one tick mid spine, whatever the case might be.
Right. So it's a testament to your skills as a presser and a grader by giving an estimate. Not many, like you're saying, not many pressers do that.
Yeah.
That's it.
You want to give the customer the final say on, is this book worthy of sending it to CGC, or am I just wasting money on it? So, you know, and, you know, like you said, it is about reputation, it is about customer service. I have heard from many of my customers, you know, that they've had bad experiences with pressers in the past. You know, and sometimes you go, you know, that might not be the presser's fault. It might be the customer's expectations. It might be handling at CGC, etc. But it scares me because I don't, you know, to hear your reputation is everything in this industry. So, you know, if you're not trusted as doing what you say you can do, you know, you might as well not be doing it. So, you know, it came to my attention. I had, just coincidentally, I have not submitted books on my own since last summer. You know, I did 75 books last summer. You know, they break them up into boxes of 25. You know, and I had a great box of, you know, 19 9.8s. I had an okay box, and then I had a box where I had 1 9.8 and 18 9.6s. So it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth, and that happens. There's subjectivity between graders. It's the, you know, it's the game that gets played. You know, and every book, well, not every book can be a 9.8. There are certain books you really expect a 9.8, but there's a lot of 9.8s you get back to, like, all right, I got lucky. You know, that could have been a 9.6. You know, there's always something usually wrong that can, you can go, all right, well, you know, it's really good, but there's a little bit of, you know, color at the corner here that's, you know, that's not there anymore. So, you know, they can detract from that. And some of the graders do, obviously. And usually I found if you get a strict grader, you got a strict grader for that whole submission, you know, that box. You know, if you got a lenient grader, you're usually like, all right, this is working out good.
Yeah.
So exactly. So, I call him Horrible Howard and Generous George. You never know which one you're going to get on any given day. You don't know if the guy at the next next grading table, has a little bit too much BO that day, and it's
you never know what's
annoying the neighbor,
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's dynamics there. So
of course,
I had books coming back. And when I got my first box back, I took a look at it. The Swamp Thing that you showed was in that submission. There was a Tank Girl that was in that submission. And admittedly, the Tank Girl had a spine tick. There you go.
Yeah.
It didn't have 3 light faceting spine ticks, but there was a color break there in one of those spots. And I know it was there. And if you look at the original photos on CGC, you can see 1 color break. You can't see 3. You can't see light faceting off it, etc. And that book has been sent back to CGC and received on Friday. We'll see what they did with it. I'm not expecting. I'm kind of curious what their process is, more so than anything else. It's the only book of those submissions that I've sent back so far. So there was another mechanical error on a Giant Size X-Men 1, not a spine related one. Top right corner was looks like they encapsulated the corner of the book in the inner well as well.
I've seen that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So, different problem, quality control problem, but not what we're talking about. And those one-off things can happen. Hopefully it's fully repairable and, we go on about our business and don't really worry about it. But so it kind of caught my eye. This ain't right. It was a concern. But, 3 books is not the end of the world. It's not indicative of a real problem in my mind. And, I take whatever anybody tells me on boards, etc. Is this legit? Is this just, people making noise? Because there's a lot of people that really, they're detractors of CGCs. They'll jump on any opportunity that they see. Why are you doing this? Why are you grading, etc. There's trolls out there.
Right.
Plastic coffin and all that,
Yeah. Subsequently, I got the 25 book submission back on Thursday of this past week. Today's Sunday. I looked at it Thursday afternoon. I saw more problem books, and that 25, I think I had 4 more that I'm like, yeah, these, all of them have that plate type effect, but they don't all get the, it depends on the book. It depends on how weak that spine is. Was there a tick there before? How thick is the book? Can it withstand that pressure? A thick book, you're not going to notice that center bow as much because the book has taken up almost the whole inner well. It's not going to be as affected as much. So, I was a little upset, possibly livid, but I wanted to take a night and think about it, which I did. I thought I didn't really sleep much Thursday night. I'm like, what am I going to do? Should I, do I let my customers know? And then I have the fear, my customers, like, I had a submission ready to go out to CGC for a customer on Friday morning. And I could not, in good faith, take that CGC order form and not tell the customer, hey, this is what I'm seeing now. Do we want to, do you want to send this in? I wish I could have told them before the books were pressed, to possibly, he's not submitting them. He asked me to, send them back to him and he'll submit at a later time when it's resolved, hopefully. But, that's the scenario that brought this about to me.
So that's hitting your back pocket there by, you not taking in.
Possibly. I'm not going to go out of business. I'll be honest. I was retired before I started doing this. It's a hobby that turned into a business for me. I enjoy doing it. I love the satisfaction my customers relay to me. I can't, every day I get texts, hey, I got my grades back. You did great. This grade was on target. This grade was on target. I love seeing those things. I love hearing the happy stories. So that's
now. I just I want to say thank you for all of that. And I want to say, you mentioned that it was about 2 weeks ago that it was brought to your attention.
Yeah.
Now, we have a lot of friends that do pressing and cleaning, and
Sure.
There's a gentleman, a good friend, and he has a YouTube channel. He's a presser. He's a pressing business Instagram page, The Comic Doc. And months and months ago is when I first heard about this, because he's in Canada. That's right, and he's an awesome person, and he does his weekly, sometimes more than 1 time a week. He does unboxing of his customer books that come in, and he talks about them. And far too often, his reaction has had to be, "Why the hell does this book look like this in this inner well?" And this is going back months and months.
Wow.
And so I had been seeing and hearing bits of dissatisfaction from the community. And then there are some, larger accounts, some smaller accounts that have made YouTube videos about it, but it didn't start to gain traction. There's been some Instagram posts. And of course, as we've discussed on the CGC forum, there's pages and pages and pages of this. But something shifted, I would say, recently, where it just felt like, I think I think more people need to get involved. So what I would like to do is illustrate for the community that might not be aware or might not know what to look for, or might not be paying attention. What is it that they are looking to be concerned about or aware of if they're purchasing a book or receiving a submission back? What is it that they're going to see if they're looking to notice this?
Right. You know, you're going to see now, and it seems like possibly since January, February, March, almost all the inner wells have that slight banana shape.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean your book is damaged, you know, but it could lead to the book being damaged if the, you know, if that spine is not strong enough to withstand that pressure, you know, of that well dipping down in the middle. And a lot of books, you know, a lot of those DC books from the 90s, they're 24 pages long. They got a thin cover. They're not strong spines. They're going to tick. They want to tick. You know, so those type books are going to be affected more than other books, in my opinion.
Right.
So that's really what you're going to look for. You're going to, I mean, you know, when you have those hard bends, when you hold it to the light, if the light is reflecting off it wrong, multiple directions, you may have this problem. Doesn't mean that it was caused, you know, there's certainly books out there that probably had that problem. But I think what you're going to find is you're going to start seeing more and more 9.8s out there and 9.6s with that problem. And you should not. They should not be out on the market. It's going to really affect the reliance of the grades that CGC puts on a book. A lot of people go, I want a 9.8 of this book. You know, they expect a level, you know, the book to be of a certain level of quality. So if you have 9.6s and 9.8s that look like that swamp thing you showed, that's a problem for the market, and it's a problem for the credibility of CGC. And if I'm not mistaken, it's before me, but I think that's how PGX kind of got themselves in trouble. It's the grade's going to be trusted. And we don't want to see that happen with CGC because they are way too important to this market. You know, my business, but the whole community. You know, I mean, we all have investments in these collectibles, and if all the money we've spent on grading books becomes, you know, a problem to the point that we are concerned that why is it done? I can't trust that grade. It means nothing to me.
Yeah.
Then we have a problem.
Have you heard anything back? Have you requested some commentary from CGC? Have you let them know what the issue is? What have you heard back from them?
I have spoken only to the customer service rep when I got my first batch of books, you know, back. So I called primarily on the X-Men because that had more significant damage, and it was obvious damage that wasn't there in the original scans. You know, it got pinched in the corner, and it's concerning because nobody wants to see a giant size X-Men 8.0 with that kind of damage.
Of course.
So so that was my primary reason to call them and to see what they could do to address it. Because it was also an upcharged book. I think it was, you know, $170 or something like that. 180, I don't even remember. Close to $200 to grade the book because of the value of the book. So, you know, and I didn't want to resubmit again. You know, pay those fees again. So, you know, I asked them what they could do with that. But I did bring it to their attention, you know, the customer service rep only, you know, that I was a presser, you know, don't just discount what I'm saying, but there's problems with other books. I sent him photos of some of the other books. And he told me that, that I can submit as many back as I want under that mechanical error label, and the team would look at it. He was not forthcoming and admitting, yeah, we know about this problem. You know, he mentioned something that I had not heard before. He said something to the effect, well, we think there might be a problem if books get shipped to a higher elevation. And I'm like, well, I'm in Florida. I'm at sea level just like you.
Yeah.
You know, my ankles get wet when it rains just like you do.
Right.
So,
and oh, sorry, carry on.
No, go ahead. No, I apologize. And sorry about that bird noise you were hearing in the back. That's from me. I apologize.
All right, well, we're going to have to see that bird later. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
The reason that I bring that up is because some of the earlier complaints, there were people that from several months ago, you know, and they've noticed these concerns and they brought them up with CGC. And what they were told early on was mechanical errors were rejected. Some books were shipped back, and they said this is well within our allowance of bending, which I personally, my personal opinion, I'll speak for myself here, is absurd. If I send you a book flat, there's no expectation on my end to receive it back in a position where in a way that it looks less than when it went to you, right? If bending it makes it more reflective in those dips and valleys, that is not my expectation, and I think that is unacceptable. So bending something I send you flat when your job is to encapsulate it, presumably flat, I think was an absurd response. And it would appear that since then, like you said, people have actually had their mechanical errors approved and books have come back. But also, I've watched YouTube videos of individuals who sent in 4 or 5, got them back, and the same issue is still there. So it's almost like it's I forget the word, but it's like I forget the word, where you're just doing something to satisfy the customer, but you're not actually doing the thing that would satisfy the customer.
Yeah, appeasing.
Yeah, you're just appeasing. It's mouth service or lip service or something. I don't know. Maybe I just said something completely inappropriate, but I have no idea. But also, I want to take this moment to say, Berk Family, who has an Instagram page and a YouTube channel, he's with us in the chat today, and you had a video that you did with him. What's going on, my man? Berkfam54 comments. You did a video, You did a video with him earlier today.
Yes.
Please, guys, go check out the video.
Check it
it's a
out,
fantastic video, and I appreciate the kind words that you guys had to offer in that video. Thank you very much. But we also have a picture from Berk Family Comics of one of his books that was affected. James, do you have that book handy? Because
it's not a picture, it's a video. So there's a couple of books that he's come across.
Okay.
There you go.
I mean, look at that. Like, that's not how you want
and
that
was
book
a
to show
9.8.
up when you get it back.
Right. And it's graded 9.8, unfortunately.
And that's a graded 9.8. If someone gave you that book raw and that was the shape of it, I don't think you would pay 9.8 price for that book or this one.
Yep. Yep, unfortunately. That one's obviously not as bad, but it's more than a tick.
Yeah.
And I do have
more than a few books. Yeah.
I do have a question. Do we think this is anything to do with them trying to address like the tamper-proof slabs? Or somebody's put in the chat, Matt Rossi has put in the chat, the upshot to this whole issue is the curve wells seem to have fixed the Newton ring problem.
Absolutely right. Let's give a little kudos, please, because I have not seen a Newton ring in 6 months, and CGC, thank you for that.
You know what? The brighter side of things, right? Let's
look at the
bright side.
Matt sees a glass half empty and half full. He's
it's a great point.
Look at it, Matt. Well done.
But James, I love your question. Is because this is what the community is speculating. We don't know for sure what the cause of this is. CGC hasn't said anything. Well, publicly.
I think we can blame you.
It's all Manu's fault.
You're the one that caused the security controversy. Which, by the way,
said that earlier today.
You have. You are a celebrity to me and a lot of other people out here because of that. I mean, I knew you a little bit before that, but not on a level.
We did some business together.
We did, but man, you have. It was interesting. I got to watch your interview with Matt Nelson. I remember him saying he had something for you. I thought it was going to be a subpoena. I thought you were going to get a lawsuit. I was like, oh, he's got something for him. All right, he's got a lawsuit for loss of revenue for bringing this to everybody's attention.
Right.
Defamation.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, it was a very nice award. It was a nice plaque. I was like, look at that, and that's come to mind. I'm like, maybe I'll get one of those. Was it a Hobby Hero Award also?
It was a hobby. It was the 2024 Hobby Hero Award. It was a very kind gesture, and
I
appreciate you
it's
bringing
awesome.
up. And you do deserve one.
No, I'm going to get the lawsuit.
No. We're on the right side of this thing, and I firmly believe if you're on the right side of this thing,
Matt, please do not sue me. I have nothing.
Matt, we like you a lot, Matt. I'm sorry that things are the way that they are, but no. So yeah, people are saying that, and it's so funny. A friend did bring that up earlier. He said this is still, kind of more of that continuation, right? Because as a result, possibly
it seems to me that may very well likely be what's going on. Is that the cases have changed? There is no doubt about it. As I've said, they are just as indestructible as CBCSs. They are very hard to open. I've had to crack probably in the neighborhood of about 20 of them now. And they don't open easy. I mean, even CBCS cases, they give you a little slot on the bottom where you could shove a screwdriver and you can give a little twist and get that started. These CGC cases, I have not found an easy way to get them open yet. I'm using a ball peen hammer to try to get a crack on the top corner, and then work my way through it. But I have plenty of cuts on my hands from doing it that way. So, it's a strong case. There's no doubt about it. So it's an improvement. Yeah. But I don't know if the case physically changed, if the sealing method, the way they sealed it changed, but it seems that there's not enough space for the inner wells now. So have inner wells grown? Is there too much heat being applied with the sealing all around that they're bowing the inner wells?
Right.
CGC is probably the only one that knows, and it's not obviously in their interest to tell us.
Sure.
but it's got to be in their interest to resolve it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, it's like we don't know. It's something they obviously had the right intention of
Yeah.
creating a more secure case so it's less susceptible to being easily opened, manipulated, resealed, and someone that doesn't know what they're looking for might be able to pass it off as a legitimately sealed book that came from CGC that way. And so they did something. It was very noticeable in reaction, in response to the controversy, to the, you know, what was happening, that you're no longer able to pry any part of it open with your hand. It's sealed fully around. And yeah, it's a mystery. Is that exposure to additional heat? Like, what is the process? Is the warping of the inner well a result of that? Because I personally don't think there was any physical changes. I don't think they reconstructed, re-engineered, or produced new plastics. It doesn't seem that way. I've done some comparing, but I haven't, you know, I'm not the engineer involved, so I could be wrong in that regard. But it seems like whatever they're doing to seal it may have had that negative effect. And we really hope that CGC is willing to say something about this so that we can be aware. And
I think it's like in a bit of it's a reactionary cause. It's like the line of industry that I work in. Something only ever changes when there's something bad happens.
Yeah,
it should
unfortunately,
everything should be tested fully until it's ready to go. Every possible outcome, every scenario should be tested. But to rush things and just carry on with things, it's just super annoying for us.
Right. If they would have, well, I mean, I understand it's not an easy thing for them to re-engineer a case, but it seems like they went with the fix that was within reach, perhaps the easiest fix, and there might have been a consequence to that. Another question that I had for you, Ron, is like, based on your experiences with submissions, what percentage have you experienced to be affected, or what do you think people can be cautious to receive?
I can only speak to my own ones that I got back, but I am looking at about 7 books, and there's varying degrees of problems with them, so it's hard to, but 7 out of 50 is a little bit more than 10% in my particular submission.
Got it.
You know, so it's not a good ratio in my opinion. Now, you know, there are books that, you know, I sit there and go, this is probably also caused by that, but I can't say with any definitive. You know, I have a Simpsons Comics and Stories 9.6 that was in that batch. I submitted it. You know, listen, this is a hard book to get a 9.8 on. The spine is crap on this book. It ticks very easily, but this was one that could have gotten a 9.8 in my opinion. And you know, it's you know, a 9.6 is not out of the question. I was not surprised to see a 9.6. Another one did get a 9.8. I don't see major ticks in it yet, but this one has 2 hard ticks with bad faceting of the light. So, you know, that's not a 9.6 to me anymore. I think this will be troublesome to sell as a 9.6. It presents more 9.4, possibly 9.2-ish. In my opinion.
I really respect that about you, Ron. Like, you take that into consideration. Like, what does it appear to be? Like, how is the individual buying this book going to feel? I think that's a lot of the reason why you became vocal about this to begin with.
Sure. And you know, another thing that kind of comes to mind, and this is my own devil's advocate, you know, listen, I think I'm a very reputable person, but, you know, at the same time, I had to weigh off, you know, and I still am to some degree, is do I send these back to CGC? Do I use them as examples? Do you know, somebody looks at a book with certain defects in it and they say, okay, it's a 9.4, but it has these pressable defects, or it's a 9.6 and it has these pressable defects, may purchase that book thinking they can CPR it and get it to a 9.8, not realizing that this book was graded at that grade before those defects were present.
Right.
So that's something else those flippers have to worry about out there. You know, that, you know, a lot of these books might not be improvable beyond the grades that were originally given.
Let's go over that one more time. That's such a great point, because you call it, this is great. I'm going to add this terminology to my vocabulary, the faceting, how it's reflecting the light, right? So
like a diamond, the way the light reflects off it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So someone might look at this book and see these glaring reflections and think, wow, this is not pressed. Not recognizing that it's actually the irreversible elements, the color breaks perhaps, that were what represents the grade is representing, not these extra things. If it was actually graded this way, it would have been much lower.
It would have been much lower. So you're hoping to bring it back to the grade it has now, then would be the best you can hope for, because in, you know, assuming they were graded accurately for, you know, a previously undamaged state, damage that occurred after it left the grader's hand and either went into the encapsulation department or it's fully cooled and was, cooled in shipping, etc.
Yeah.
That 3 days later, 2 days later, it gets to you and it shows those defects. And really, that's the only difference. I mean, these books were in grading encapsulation 3 days before they got in my hands, so it doesn't take long for these damages to appear. They may appear on other books 2 months down the road, due to the, we know how to store comics. Sometimes you have that box that's not full, and all the books get that little bend in them. You're going to start, that could be what happens in these cases. And one of the reasons people encapsulate your high grade valuable books is protection. And, you don't want to cause damage while it's in there.
100%.
Oh, I do want to talk to you about that a little bit, but James, I think you have a question. I'll jump into this other one I have after you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're getting some great questions in the chat, everybody. Thank you very much I have starred a few of them, so we will get to them. But I just wanted to highlight JSS Brooklyn's comment. He's put, Ron, are you considering moving the bulk of your professional work to PSA because of this issue with CGC? Are you contemplating that, or?
I don't know enough about PSA yet. So, I mean, I'd love to hear your conversations. My initial reaction to what I heard from the San Diego Comic-Con was, the cases are probably not what people are looking for due to size and weight, possibly. But, we'll see how it is. I mean, there have been competitors to CGC before that don't seem to have held up. I think the market is going to dictate what everybody does, not what I do. So, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. I don't say we need to go to CGC. My customers tell me what to do with their books. 10% of them or so get shipped back to them. 89% get shipped to CGC, and a very small percentage go to CBCS. And that's the customer's choice. It's not it's not me. It's what the market says people should do with their books to maximize their their return, if that's what they're looking for.
Yeah,
So that's not really up for me. I fully support CGC because that's what my customers support, and I want them to succeed. I'm an optimist, and I want them to do everything better that they can to make this, a situation that's well behind us.
100%. And that's what I hear from a lot of pressers. They say, this is not, I don't steer my customers in a direction. I might have an opinion, but ultimately the market is what determines what a customer is going to want to press their book, grade their book with, which company. And most people want CGC. It has the cachet as a brand. It has the secondary market value. And yes, we will be discussing PSA. So I do look forward to sharing some more information with you. One of those pieces of information being the case is redesigned, and it is now the exact size and dimension, and that will be coming out soon.
That's great to hear that they are taking feedback so quickly.
Correct.
So that is very encouraging.
Absolutely. Sorry.
I was going to say, people in the chat have been talking about the CBCS. The cases are actually better. I'll be honest, they're quite solid and they feel quite heavy in comparison to CGC slabs. They're I was quite surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a valid point. I think they are a little bit heavier, possibly, but CGC cases are pretty sturdy as they exist now.
Yeah.
And maybe they need to reverse that a little bit. I don't know, to resolve this problem, because this is much more serious than Newton rings. Newton rings were ugly.
Oh yeah.
But we got the point. We're not damaging books. You're looking for a grade, and it might not present well, but your book is safe. And Newton rings. Good pressers have developed techniques to remove them in a vast majority of cases. It's not really cost effective for people to ship their slabs to you, so that you could spend 2 minutes removing the Newton rings for them and sending them back. It's like, how do I write? I almost feel bad charging people to do that. So, but it can be done in a lot of cases. Sometimes they come back. It all depends on how that well is sitting in the case. There's multiple factors that affect those Newton rings. So, but hopefully they're not an issue for too much longer.
Right. Hopefully they're not. It's very clear to me that you're not doing this or saying this because you're looking to take anything away from CGC. This is just a concern because you want CGC to do better, and that's all it is.
A rising tide lifts all boats. And
Exactly.
They are very important to this industry. So we need them to succeed.
Someone has said that CGC should rename themselves for Curving Good Comics.
That was funny. I saw that.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's funny.
The post from earlier today, just the post, letting our friends know outside of story post that this stream was happening today. there's some really interesting comments in there, and I'm going to speak for myself and I'm going to speak for the commenter because they left the comments. But there was a comment I saw come in. I haven't had a chance to respond it yet. It said 5 ways to kill a company. Bending books is okay, or something like that. That might have been 4 words, but it was, you know, whatever the 5 words it was. And I was like, wow, that really is a powerful statement for them to come out and say this is well within our acceptable allowance. It's just like, how do you do that? And how do you send like one of your employees on the forum to go say that and really victimize themselves by saying that? It's like, poor, oh man.
Yeah.
You've got to think, haven't you, that they would have gone to like their boss or manager or whatever and say, "Oh, what should I respond to this comment?" And they go, "Oh, just say that," and you'd be there like, "Should I?"
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
And this is a real shame because I think it's also slowing down CGC. Like the reason a lot of books in my past that I've pressed went to CBCS is they were signed and they wanted them authenticated. Right. I have seen more books come since, you know, the JSA authentication functionality got added to CGC. I get so many signed books now. People that have been holding on to these books because they didn't, you know, they wanted them in a CGC case, and you know, now that they can get them. And I've had people send me CBCS books that were signed so that they can get them in CGC cases. So, you know, this is obviously going to slow down that process a little bit. It's, you know, CGC's had, you know, I've been in this hobby, whatever, for about 5 years now or so. I've seen a lot of problems with CGC. You know, I mean, and they survive them. You know, I remember, you know, 2021 basically, or 2020 or 21, sending books in the summer and being thrilled I got them back the following spring of the next year, you know? And then we dealt with Newton rings, and then we dealt with multiple price increases in the same year, you know? And then we said, you know, then they said, you know, you got 2 weeks to let us know our mechanical errors, you know, which, you know, there's all kinds of things along the way, let alone what, you know, Manu discovered earlier this year with the you know, they're surviving. So they're needed. The community supports them, despite many of the gripes you hear out there. And you're not going to hear them from me, but you know, they are withstanding. So you know, I wish PSA luck, but they got that's a big gorilla they're trying to knock over.
Well, there's going to be a fun conversation in the later half of this, right? So I look forward to you either being part of that conversation or hearing it. I don't want to make it sound as though this is a stream about, you know, PSA
CGC
taking over and here's the reasons why. That's not what this is. I do firmly believe competition, like you said, a rising tide raises all ships. Everybody benefits from a real competitor entering
It'll help
the market.
keep prices down. It'll keep both companies on their toes. It is important. It is important, and it was very sad to see less and less getting encapsulated by CBCS. You know, in my opinion.
You know, and that's kind of a different story in and of itself. And I want your opinion on this actually, because they do make a great slab. Like they honestly make a great slab. And, you know, grading books is subjective no matter where you grade it. So sometimes you're going to be happy. Sometimes you're going to, you know, want to resubmit it, right? That's kind of the name of the game. We've come to understand that. Sometimes it's more meaningful than other times, but, you know, sometimes you just resubmit it, you get the grade you want, whatever, right? It's just subjectivity.
True.
But CBCS not being able to compete in a very real way, in my words, you know, no one else's, but, you know, why do you think that is? Why do you think in terms of their marketing or the business side, and I've heard a lot of bad things about their customer service, like what is it with them as a business that doesn't allow them to operate in a competitive way? Do you have an opinion on that?
The only thing, and I don't know, you know, the only thing I could say is the market value of the books is not commanded with a CBCS case. The market has decided, and that is a macroeconomic thing that we, you know, on an individual level don't have control of. There are plenty of people out there 3 years ago that said CBCS cases were far superior. Yeah, their labels weren't as pretty,
as sexy.
You know, exactly. You know, but there were benefits to it. I believe at the time their prices, their rates were lower. Their turnaround time was slightly better for a while, but you know, I think at some point they decided they're not going to compete on price. They're going to compete on quality. I don't know if that's working for them either. So I really, you know, I'll speak to what I'm an expert on. Other than that, take my opinion with a grain of salt because it really doesn't mean anything.
Well, I don't know. I want to know how much your opinion means to your customers. You sent this email out, and in that email, we read it earlier in the stream. You mentioned that, you know, maybe they might want to consider slowing down or not submitting for a while until this problem is resolved, because why open yourself up to the headache, the disappointment, the frustration? I think you called it agitation in the stream that you did earlier this morning, right?
Okay.
And so how did your customers respond? Did customers say, you know what, I'm going to take your advice, Ron. I'm going to wait until you tell me it's time to go again?
Unfortunately, I've heard that from a lot of customers. I've seen a lot of emails back, a lot of thank yous. Most people said they were not aware of it. They appreciated me letting them know. But yeah, the sentiment is they are holding, which, I would rather have an educated customer that makes the decisions that's right for them than an unsatisfied customer, because that's not going to help anybody in the long run. So I'm okay with that, but it's not obviously it's not the answer I want to hear. I'd love you. Hey, great job, Ron. Here's 50 more books. Hold on to them until CGC fixes this next week.
Right.
That's what I want to hear, but that's not what I'm hearing.
Sure. But I did see one of your customers leave a comment, a very encouraging one. He said, yeah, I might not submit these for grading or whatever, but I'm still sending them to you for pressing, right? Like people still want a better presentation on their books and maybe prepare them for when they are grading. So that was really nice to hear from one of your customers as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a really good question here from JSS Brooklyn. He, I know you mentioned earlier, Ron, about those DC 90s books. They really want to, leave.
They want to tick. Yes.
They want to tick. Yeah. But he's asked, do these case issues affect predominantly moderns, bronze, silver, or golden age books? Have you noticed anything particularly? Is it more?
All I know is what I have seen on the forum from the people that have been complaining about this for several months. Like I said, I am new. Honestly, you guys bring this to the forefront. I'm a little platform. I am a little guy. You guys are the ones that can really impact what CGC does next. So this video is important for the community.
Important. Yeah.
No doubt about it. I mean, Manu, you have their attention all the time, obviously. So you speaking to this is the most important thing. But from what I've seen on the forum, I have seen a book from the 60s that had spine facets in it. That was, I think it was only a 5.5, still a 5.5, but it looks worse. That might be a one-off. It could very well be a one-off. You don't know if that's a scenario. Almost entirely from what I've seen on the board is modern books. Those books from the 80s and 90s is what is predominantly all over the board. For those type of damages. So it clearly is a case on the modern inner wells, in my opinion. CGC would know better than I do, but I have not seen it as much on vintage books, at least not on the board. And I have had a vintage submission came back to me for a local customer. I did not identify any problems in that submission, but it wasn't a huge submission. So it's, it's a drop in the bucket. You really don't know. CGC would know a lot better than we do what's really going on.
And something comes to mind in regards to seeing more modern books affected, and that is when we're looking for 9.8s and 9.6s, we're obviously paying more attention to when it doesn't look like a 9.8 or 9.6. And in modern books, right? And so you have a 5.0, a 4.0. You may just think this is part of the 5.0 or the 4.0. And also we have a gloss that on modern books is not like what gloss might remain on an older book, creating more of a reflection. So it could look more exaggerated on a modern book because of the things that we are looking for on a modern book.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point.
Derek has said that we should split the modern era into smaller chunks.
We should.
For the CGC scandals. So we should have the micro trimming gauge, the acetate age, the reholder gate age, and now the banana curve age.
We are at the banana curve age. Derek,
BCA, that's what we're at.
The BCA.
That's funny. That is funny. People are upset about the advertisements. I think our friend James is monetizing the live stream, so people
sorry,
are getting advertisements.
I apologize to everyone. I'm now monetized, so I'm really sorry.
Armando, what up, my man? He says, because Derek said Manu golfs with Matt Nelson every Saturday. I love laughing in the comments. And Armando says Manu plays golf at 10K a hole. I don't even know how to play golf, but
I cannot envisage you golfing, Manu. I cannot.
Maybe one day I'll surprise somebody. I know some of the terminology. I know par, and I've incorporated that into my regular speak. But that's all I know about it. My goodness. Sorry, I got sidetracked. James, you got anything for Ron?
Yeah. So Ron, in terms of I mean, you'll be best to place to answer. How long have you been doing pressing cleaning now?
Well, I kind of got back into the hobby, which, you know, we all had this hobby as a kid, obviously, and then we became adults and had children and all that stuff, and then got, you know, so the COVID era kind of brought me back into it as well. I was holding on to books for, you know, decades, and the wife said, "Hey, can we do something with these? We've been lugging them around for 35 years, you know." So I said, "Yeah, sure. Let me go see what they're worth." You know, we had some free time, and you know, and unfortunately, that was it was a big mistake on her part at the time, because, you know, those 400 books I had quickly turned into 2,000 books as I added more and more. So, you know, I bought with everybody else during COVID. I learned about the grading, because this was new. This was not going on in the 90s when I was a collector as a kid. So, you know, I started learning about the grading. I'm like, oh, if I get these graded, I can get more value out of them, etc. So, you know, I decided to learn how to clean and press books, and it's a process to learn. I mean, you can press books and get some results. There's no doubt about it, but you develop techniques, you develop skills, especially with cleaning, and you get better at it. And originally I said I would never do anybody else's books. This is, you know, I was damaging too much books back then, too many books, you know. I wouldn't take those risks with somebody else's books, but you know, your skills develop, and by the spring of 2022, I started doing a couple of friends' books, and then they told friends, and they told friends, and, you know, next thing you know, I was being sought after. I threw up an Instagram page, and I got bigger, and, you know, next thing you know, unfortunately, then since December up until probably the end of this coming week, I haven't really had a day off. I've been keeping up, you know, 7 days a week. I keep around a 7-day turnaround normally in the past.
Oh, that's really good.
So,
wow,
yeah.
Nice.
So, you know, books that I get in go out rather quickly. But, you know, I work to keep up with the workload and keep my customers happy. So I might get those days off that I wished for, and then in the upcoming future, until this issue gets resolved. But yeah, so I've been doing this for about 2 years as a business.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. That's actually, sorry.
No, go on.
Oh, I just wanted to say that's actually really cool, because I do share a similar story. Many of us do. The pandemic brought us back in. Literally, it was 2020 that I saw on eBay my first comic book in plastic, and I thought, what the hell are they doing? Oh, they're grading these books? And I bought my first book, so on and so forth. And my first book that I purchased on eBay, $120, beautiful book. I have since sold it, and it came with a floating piece of plastic in it. But when I first got it, I thought it was glass. So I messaged the seller, and I said, dude, there's a piece of glass in this thing. It's going to scratch my book. And he had already been dealing with CGC, and I'm new to it. So he already knew. He said, listen, kid, you're new to this. He didn't call me a kid. I'm not a kid, but I just say that, you know. And he said, listen, you're new to this. That is not harming the book. That is a part of the inner well that is snapped off on the side. It happens frequently in CGC slabs, and it's floating between the plastic of the inner well and the outer case. It's not actually touching the book. And if you want to return it, you could return it, or whatever. I said, just give me the money to re-encapsulate it, because I did some research. And he said, no, just return it. I said, you know what? I'll just call it a lesson learned. Thank you for the information. I think he sent me a partial refund anyway, because it was a nice rapport, but I kept the book. And also, I think I'll take this opportunity just to say, you know, yesterday we are acquainted, Ron, you and I, of course, from the past, and on Instagram we are, but we haven't spoken for a while. And this is our first time speaking at length, which is so nice. And it was brought back to my attention, because I forgot it had been some time that we had done business, and the book that you had sold me is one of my favorites. I have not resold that book yet. Not that I wouldn't. That is what I love to do. I like buying and selling things I love. But it's the glow in the dark Enemy Within Venom Newsstand, right?
Of course.
In a 9.8. And you sold me this book, and I remember a lot about this transaction, because
we did it over Instagram.
We did it over Instagram, and I asked you a bunch of questions. Is there anything on the slab I need to know about? And there was only one mark on the slab, and you detailed it for me. You sent me a picture of it. You've always been that sort of person, and I really appreciate that. And the most interesting thing about what happened yesterday is when I was reminded that this was the book I did business with you about. That was the day that another copy of it came in for me from somebody else. Right. Literally the day I opened a package of another one, I'm talking to you, and you're the person I bought this from. I think the universe is sending us a message, and I love both of these. But
when was that new one graded?
Oh, no, it is not the shape of a banana, so I think we're okay there. But I'll definitely look at it even more closely now. But I think that's really cool that book connects us. I love that sort of thing, man, and I appreciate it. Thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
Really Speaking of the universe aligning, I was actually I was up really late last night, and I was talking to Manu via Instagram, and I'd commented on your post because I knew obviously we were doing this show tonight.
Yes.
And then Manu messaged me saying, "Oh, have you seen this post by such and such?" And literally, as he's talking to me, he goes, "Oh, actually, you've commented saying you're going to DM him." And he's like, "Oh, we should get him on the channel." And I was like, then I sent him a screenshot of what you'd said about coming on and being a guest. It was just like,
perfect, man.
It was perfect, absolutely perfect.
Yep. We previously had a conversation about that very thing. You know, just when I saying we should talk about this. You know, we should do something to, you know, to apply a little more persuasion to expedite the solution of this. Because
absolutely,
you know, it's not going to get done. It seems like unless the community insists upon it.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I do feel like this is something that is now gaining traction with the community, which is essential. CGC has in the past and would like for something to be resolved quietly, but it just seems like they don't actually resolve it when it stays quiet. And that's unfortunate. Like we shouldn't as a community have to band together and force a company's hand, but historically, it just seems like that's how it's been. And people that are expressing their experiences, they're saying, you know, well, we were told that it's allowable, and some people are getting mechanical errors. And in your email, you said it's a case-by-case basis. Well, it shouldn't be, right? If there's a problem that's happening to 10%, let's just hypothetically 10%. Well, let's not even say that because that's a big number.
Yeah, maybe it's 5%.
Maybe it's 5%. If there's a situation
even if
that's
it's
happening,
3, it's too much.
It's too much. If it's happening over and over again and multiple members of the community are experiencing this, there should be a solution that's universal. If this is affecting your book, here's what we do. It shouldn't be this negotiation, right? You shouldn't have to have the ability to deal with confrontation to be taken care of. You shouldn't have to. It should be taken care of if the problem exists. And I think conversations like this will lead to universal solutions. And again, man, I tip my hat to you. Writing that email yesterday, it's not like a Jerry Maguire thing, but I kept thinking about a Jerry Maguire sort of thing. Like you put the email out there.
I love the way you read it. I was like, wow, that is really well written.
That's how you wrote it.
I was surprised I wrote that.
It's really incredible. It's really potent. And
thank you.
People no, it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's going to be responsible for moving this conversation forward in a way that hadn't before. No, kudos to everyone that has spoken up. And you are just adding to that. You're not taking away from anything anyone has done.
I am the finder of this problem. There's no doubt about it.
You know, and beautifully articulated, and it gave people the opportunity to feel connected to it from a presser's perspective and share something that was potent, you know. So I love that you did that.
Oh, thank you.
I think this is a really good question from MJ Comix. How long are we going to give CGC to try and fix this or address it?
That's really that's on an individual basis. To every one of us has to make that decision individually.
That is the correct answer. I can hold off indefinitely, but how many people can do the same? How many people would like to do the same? That is up to each individual to decide. You said it perfectly, Ron.
Yeah, there are a lot of small businesses out there that rely on CGC. I mean, one of my customers is a small auction house that submits. I was pressing short boxes each month for him, and he gets them graded and he sells them only slab books on his website. So that's his business. So it's not just pressers that are affected. And pressers have been affected by CGC before. They changed rates, etc., to the point that we're squeezed to some degree. I mean, in my opinion, their rates are what they charge for pressing dictates what, to some degree, the rest of us have to charge for pressing. I mean, we have to be competitive to some degree. Otherwise, people will go, they might not do as good of work, whatever the case might be, but it's convenient and it costs a little less, whatever. So, we are limited to some degree because, it has to be a loss leader for CGC to press modern books at those rates.
Yeah,
sure.
Between their overhead, they can't have experienced people doing it. I assume the experienced people are, overseeing to some degree, but, the people that are touching your books are the ones that, need to have the skill. So, there's, they have a lot of control of the market and in multiple facets, dealers, etc. There's a lot of small businesses that rely on the CGC process.
I like to say a lot of eggs. I like to say a lot of eggs are in CGC cases. That's all I say. A lot of people have their eggs in CGC cases.
Sure.
James, sorry.
That's right. I was just going to say that I think that the market will decide, and I think that they'll ultimately people. I mean, for myself, I've not submitted for a while now. personally. I
Yeah.
tend to buy them already slabbed, but it will come down to a bit of a, people will start looking to see when these books are graded, and they will choose not to buy
That's
books
scary.
pre,
Yeah.
February this year, January this year. They'll be looking at
point.
older graded books, won't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Let's
James,
hope it doesn't go into the 45s. I know we're in the 44s now, I believe, for their grade.
Oh, right. The serial
Let's hope
numbers?
it's resolved by them so that people can go, oh, it's a 45. Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
So yesterday, James was not aware of the situation, or maybe 2 days ago, whenever
Yeah.
we first talked, but 2 days ago, he wasn't aware of the situation. And so he hadn't looked at some of his books. And I think today or last night, perhaps, he took it upon himself to say, do I have any of these affected books? And he actually found a Bode book in his collection. And that's so, because you guys are talking now about people will be more, they'll look into, well, is this one of the books that was graded since March or May or whatever the date we decide it is, learn that it is, and be looking for this thing or hesitant to buy it. Do you have that book handy? Like, are we able to see the curvature in that?
Yeah.
Is it easy to see in that well?
I've got a short video of me like trying to capture it in light, so I'll play that now. So you can kind of see it a little bit there, like in the middle.
Yeah, you can.
You can.
Yeah, very clearly I can see that. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so
luckily you're showing us the reader side, not the spine side, because repairs can be made on that side much easier.
Yeah.
So that's the bow. I mean, that's the clear indication of it.
But you can see a spine tick in the middle there.
Oh yeah, in that angle when you were lifting the book, you could definitely see it.
There you go. Yep. And that's the indicative of the problem. Your top and bottom corners of the book are touching the front of the slab. The middle is probably pushing all the way into the back of the slab. And when you flip an older book over in a slab, that book moves. It falls to the front when you flip it over. It falls to the back. They don't do that anymore.
So what I did here was I went to the CGC website and did the verification for my book, and I'm trying to compare the two spines together.
Well, yeah. I think the interesting thing about doing this comparison is the way that they photograph these books. It's scanned in even lighting. And so even if it's the exact same shape, it's going to reflect differently, because those scans are taken, of course, post encapsulation. So it could be in a bent well, even in that scan, but the way that the scan is taken, you're not able to look at it from the angle that's necessary to identify the problem.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a screenshot of basically the bow.
I want to mention this comment here. Make Room Collectibles says, I'm glad more YouTubers are finally talking about this CGC issue. I first uploaded about this almost 3 months ago. See, that's a perfect example of community members that have been speaking about this, and it does seem like this is gaining more traction and more people will come together. So please take a look at Make Room Collectibles channel. Take a look at some of those videos. I'm sure they're worth watching, and it would just be nice to get those circulating some more. So thank you for that, my friend, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for joining us. So that was my Usagi Yojimbo issue #1 that I bought for a friend, but it's the spine is not really great, to be honest.
And people are saying it's really easy to see it. Like from that video, great pictures. They can all see it. So people do know what to look for. And I don't think anyone should be ashamed to ask questions about it, to keep CGC honest. It's unfortunate for people selling books that they have to deal with these things, but sometimes you have to create that pain point, not create it, but recognize the pain point so that it makes it upstream or whatever, right? The complaints have to progressively get to the right people, and certain people will be offended and bothered and annoyed through the course of it. But if we avoid that, then nothing ever gets fixed. So it's just kind of how it has to go.
I just got to give a shout out to Michael Cecilia here. Thank you very much for the super chat. He's put it towards my Hulk 181 fund. I recently did a video where I talked about that it was my biggest regret because I spent £2,500 on it, which is probably about $3,300 at the time.
Okay.
You could probably pick up like a 7.0 now for a 4.0 iPad.
Yeah.
But
Market
thank you,
has changed
Mike.
a bit. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I don't know what else you want to get into, Manu. I don't know if there's any more questions you've got.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sure we could talk for forever, but I want to say thank you, like Ron, like again, thank you for putting out the message yesterday. Thank you for joining us today on the stream and talking about this. I'm sure it's not going to be the last time we talk, and please keep us all posted. Like if you hear back from CGC, if things happen, just anything at all, I'm going to be looking to your page for more information and stuff like that. And I'm glad that you're so deeply involved in the community, man. Like it's a real pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure speaking to you guys. It really has. I do appreciate the opportunity.
So if you haven't noticed at the bottom of the screen, Ron's website, www.palmbeachpressure.com, is there. You can also find him on Instagram at Palm Beach Presser. Please go and hit him up, follow him, and he's been an absolute fantastic guest. Ron, thank you for joining us this evening, afternoon.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. It has been a true honor and pleasure speaking with you.
You're the man, Ron. And guys, if you want to press anything, even not for grading, send them to Ron. Just get them cleaned up, get them flattened out, and put them in a Mylar. It's fine.
Yeah. Good advice. More people
can
might
use
start
the
doing
discount.
that.
You can use the discount code Manny, the hobby hero, for 59% off.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No,
let me say there may be some kind of special going on in September. I think I'm going to get a little slow down, so there may be some special coming around in September for people that are interested.
Well, that's awesome, and I think people should take advantage of it if it does come around.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Ron. Have a good one, Ron. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, buddy.
So much.
Have a good evening.
Bye. Wow, he's such a great guy. Honestly.
He's awesome, man. That was cool. Oh, we should have asked if anyone had any more questions before. If someone has a question for Ron, I'll message him. I'll DM him.
He's still backstage. We can ask if you want. Sorry.
Oh, let me put my clothes back on. Hold on.
I wonder what's going on there for a second.
Before Ron leaves us, he'll still maybe still be listening and maybe still be hanging out, maybe even in the chat. But before he leaves, are there questions that anyone has specifically for Ron? Okay.
This one was a great question. To be honest, this is what kind of prompted me asking about how much experience you had and how many years you've been doing it for. Is there like a professional association or like, some sort of summit that you all meet up every year and
that is a fabulous question. Is that over my whole face? Do I need to get up here to be able to be seen, or is it
we'll just take that down.
No, that's fine. That's a great question. I don't know of a professional association, but I would like to say that there are extremely skilled pressers out there. There are people that are a more appropriate choice than I am for certain books. Like I said, I do 100 books a month. I dry clean and press. I don't do deep cleaning. I don't do wet cleaning. I don't do restoration removal. There are better resources out there than I am for those.
Yeah.
I do what I know. I do what I'm comfortable with. I'm not doing any kind of peroxide treatments, blue light treatments, or anything like that at this point in time. I just don't feel I have the skill to do that. I don't have the experience, and I am not going to learn on customers' books. So if you need a recommendation for somebody, if you have those Spider-Man 1s, Amazing Fantasy 15s, I'm probably not, where every 0.5 matters, I'm not the right person for those books. We all have our lane, and that's not my lane. So, the books that I see are, I see a ton of Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars 8. I see a lot of Amazing Spider-Man 300.
Yeah.
I see a lot of books in the $150 range, of value as well. And my rate structure is $13 for moderns. I do have an upcharge if they're key books. So if the value of the book is over $750 at a 9.8, even if yours is a 5.0, I charge that upcharge. So ahead of time what this is going to be. Doesn't really apply on moderns. That's only on your Amazing Spider-Man 300s and your New Mutants 98s that you see those upcharges on moderns. And my vintage prices are $18 with the same $5 upcharge for books valued over $750. And then when you get into your Hulk 181s, just due to the risks involved, I charge $35.
Okay, great. And we're not done with you just yet. We're not done with you just yet, because as you were answering the question, our friend PNW, hello, he was hit with an ad, so he missed it. So I'm going to repeat something. You tell me what I was wrong. You said there's no association that you're aware of pressers,
that I'm aware
correct?
Of. Correct. But there are conservationists out there. There are people that have experience in the library industry, etc., that are well well versed and well experienced in doing that type of work. I'm not one of them. I don't do leaf casting. That's not my lane. Like I said, I've been doing this for 4 years. I practiced on my books for years, and now I'm doing many. I don't even have time for my own books anymore. So find the right presser for your needs. And if you need help pointing to somebody that might be more reputable, reach out to me, because I do know some other guys that, there's a lot of the other pressers out there are real friendly guys. We've had communications, and, I've seen good recommendations from others. I have not used them myself because I don't have Hulk 181s in my collection.
Yeah.
Or Spider-Man ones, or X-Men ones, or Avengers ones. Correct.
What I've got to say, Ron, is I applaud your honesty, to be honest, because not many people will just take everything in and take the money, but you're so honest, and it's a testament to your personality.
Thank you. Customer satisfaction is the key.
It is.
I don't want those people sending me those books expecting that I'm going to be able to, do a deep cleaning that other pressers will charge $150, $200 for, etc. And expect that type of work, because I don't have the skill to do it at this point. I don't know if I'll develop it. Probably not. I'm getting older. I don't know how many new tricks you could teach an old dog.
Yeah.
But you are aware of what you enjoy doing and what you do, and those are the services that you offer.
Correct.
Right.
I'm a small guy. I don't want the liability of having, those key books in my possession either, very honestly.
Sure.
Don't send me $50,000 books, please.
And there are guys out there for that, and you can refer them. Yeah. And we won't. There's a comment here, and maybe I'll touch on it. But Derek asked a question, and I have an opinion on this, but I want to hear this. I want to hear your opinion, of course, and then James and I can share ours. But Derek says, question: do we know if the damage is permanent, or do the bends/facets bounce back if the book is cracked out? Someone should crack one out for science. So,
sure.
Do you consider it damage? Is it potentially permanent? What do you make of it?
It's going to depend on the damage. I mean, we all know once if there was a color break there and there's new faceting at that color break, it's probably going to go back to the way it was. If there was not a color break there and there now is, that color break on that spine is going to stay there. There's nothing you can do. You might be able to mask it and hide it to some degree by having the light reflect off that book smoothly, but the damage is there. Cardstock books, they get what I call veining. I don't know if it's a legit term, but the texture changes when they get a spine crease. I call it a vein, as if it's like a varicose vein sticking out. You can smooth that out a little bit, but it is not going away. That damage is going to be visible, and it's really not a 9/8 candidate anymore. So if that was not there and it is there now, not repairable. It will depend on, and honestly, you're developing a weakness in the spine. Some books, and this is again my term, they want a tick. A book needs, any book that gets picked up by the top edge or the bottom edge. If you do that, you're stressing that spine. It doesn't take much. You're causing a tick. The more that gets done, the more those ticks get permanent, the more they want to be there. So even if I flatten that out and make it perfect, and I take a picture and it looks great, the first person that goes and picks that book up by a bottom edge and flexes that spine again is going to make that tick come back, and it's not going to reflect off it anymore. So we have to trust CGC to handle these books, carefully. Grab them by the reader's edge, grab them by the spine edge. Every book I handle is on a piece of cardboard. I put another piece over it, I flip it over, and that's how I look at the other side. I don't want any stress on a book. So, it's about the handling. So I can make it go away. Will it make it back into a case without it recurring again once that tick wants to be there? That weakness may come back. It may come back if the book is mishandled in the slightest. There's some tricks that I think all pressers do. I'm not going to disclose it. We try to make it so that CGC can't cause that spine tick, but I don't want to get into the secret sauce that some of us have to try to get it through the process without those ticks coming back. But we help it as best we can. I assume we all do. I do.
Another question you've got, Ron, is what is your favorite book to press? I'm guessing you have a favorite because it's so easy to do, or you get it so regular, or
there's not a favorite. There's a favorite era. 70s and 80s books come out great. There's consistency between one book and the next for 15 years almost. The paper's the same, the newsprint on the inside's the same. so you don't have to worry about those shiny interior pages. The staples are all flat. So I find those books to be the quickest and easiest and the most responsive to pressing. A lot of modern books are also very responsive to pressing, but there's a lot of differentiations in the cover material, the interior laminate, you know, how shiny the pages are, you know, you have to worry about ink transfer, etc. So I can't say there's a favorite book, but those books from the 80s and the 70s, I would love to take all day. Even the early 90s, you know, it makes my job easy. You start adding those Marvel digital code stickers into books, you know, there's all kinds of padding you have to do. There's, you know, new books have what I call bunny ear staples. They're thicker. They kind of curl in like this. You got to, you know, you got to make sure in Ultimate Fallout 4 that you're not pressing that staple into the, you know, into the cover and causing an indent. There's all kinds of problems. Less so. So if you're learning to press, practice on your 80s books. You know, your common 80s books would be my recommendation. Don't send me Web of Spider-Man 118. I hate that book. So I've said it many times. That book has a super thin cover. The spine almost wants to split because it's so thin. And then they went and stuck 2 small postcard size inserts, one right behind the cover, one in the middle of the book. So you end up having to do all this padding to make sure you don't press that shape of that index card into the interior pages or the cover. And then you're putting so much stress on the spine and the staples. It's a nightmare book to press.
That's the Scarlet Spider.
Scarlet Spider.
That's James's book.
It's awful. You don't see a lot of 9/8 of it out there.
What a challenging Newsstand 9.8 that book. Oh.
Yeah.
Those damn inserts.
Those damn inserts, yeah. A full-size insert, not so bad. A tiny insert is a real problem. And then when they're like in the old image books in the 90s, some of them are shiny and laminated. And they'll stick together into a meld. You know, so you got to...
There are even some books. I've seen this in actually, I like to grade price guides and things of that sort. I've seen price guides from the 90s, what is it? I forget the name, but there would be glossy, sort of embossed inner page underneath the top cover.
Yes.
So if you press the book, every part of that image is transferring onto the top. It's ridiculous.
Embossed books can be a real problem. I mean, that can press your Deadpool, Circle Chase ones, and Gambit ones and stuff. But you know, certain embossed books you cannot press. You can press the back cover a little bit, you know, but you can't press the front covers without smushing the embossing.
Comic Journey, this is live. I'm going to answer. I'm going to get to both of your questions. Thank you for being with us. This is live. We are here with you, and I'm going to address those questions in just a moment. Thank you. Or actually, let's just get to Comic Journey's question. So Comic Journey's with us, and that's awesome. And he's asking you some hard hitters. So the first one, this is the second one. Oh, no, this is the first one. He's asking, he says, can you ask him if he insures the work for damages that can possibly occur while in his possession? So does he guarantee or insure his work? That's the question.
Sure. Well, let me say, I give a customer guarantee. I guarantee I'm going to give you the best solution, but pressing is risky. You know, I have a submission form. There is a waiver on it, just like CGC has. It's very similar language. Basically says accidents can happen, staples can pop, damages can happen. Don't hold me responsible. Now, that being said, has that happened in the past? Occasionally, not often, luckily, because I wouldn't be in business. Do I try to make it right? Yes. You send me a $50,000 book. I can't make it right, so don't send me that. And the problem with insurance is it's really not available for what we do. You know, at least not that I have found, not at a rate especially that would be worthwhile. Because the way I look at it, I've looked into getting insurance. Your companies that insure your collections will not insure work being done on the book. You know, I'm actively working on a book and potentially causing damage, and that's what I would want insurance for. You know, I damage a customer's book. There's not a company out there that basically will insure your work product. There were some that, you know, there's no business for it. There's not enough of us out there to say, oh yeah, we know how to rate that. So I have received insurance quotes that were crazy because I look at it and say, what's my risk? My risk is I damage one book at a time. So any claim that I have against me for damage, which again, look to my waiver. Sorry, can't help you, but I will do my best to help you. You know, it's basically, I got to kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth here. I want my customers to be happy. And if I can, and I have damaged books, I have, you know, it's not a problem for me to buy a $50 book if I did the wrong thing. You know, I can't do that on a $10,000 book. It's not in my, but basically what I'm saying is The quotes that I got, which were still fuzzy about whether or not it would cover damage that I caused by doing something to a book, were astronomical. $6,000 a year. But I can only damage one book at a time. Unless my house burns down, I work out of my home. Unless unless my house burns down and your books go up in my house, then there's a real problem. But that's not the huge risk that I have. So I would rather self-insure to some degree against that kind of scenario. So it's a tough question. I wish you didn't ask it because it's how the secret sauce is made. But unfortunately, that's the facts. There are pressers that say they are insured. If you look at the fine print on some of the websites, when they say they have insurance that may cover it in shipping. They don't have insurance that covers their work. And, they may find that out the hard way, unfortunately, because insurance companies don't want to pay out huge claims. And once they do pay out one claim, they don't want you anymore anyway.
Right. And they make it a fight to even get it done. And
you can't get a renewal.
Right. It is in Comic Journey's nature to ask the hard questions. So I didn't expect anything
He's
different.
very good.
Great question. Don't ask
that's
again.
What came. Yeah, right. It's been said. You forced his hand. But it sounds like you're really transparent about, what you can and cannot do and what you might not want to take on, right? And so it becomes up to your customer or potential customer to decide
if they want to take that risk. We'll finish his sentence.
Best intention, but they have to understand what is expected here and what can happen if something goes wrong. The next question that he said was, does he take images of the books when he receives them and then before he ships them out?
Not religiously. It's been my practice. Listen, there's only so much time in a day. There's only so much that can be done. I want to focus my energy on correcting the books quickly and solving the problems. However, I have an Instagram page and I love presenting photos of improvements. So if I see damages, and not everything photographs, if I have an expensive book on my desk, I'll take a head-on shot, but it's not going to show much. I'll flip it over and take a full back. But unless you're holding that book to the light at the angle to show what the defect is that you expect to come out, those are the ones that are going to make the Instagram feed. So I take plenty of photos of books that I expect to see. Oh, that's going to look a lot better. Let me get a photo of this now. So you will. Don't be surprised to get photos from me if you are a customer of mine at the end of the process, saying, "Hey, this is your before and afters." I do those same photos I put on my Instagram page. There's a lot more of them that go to customers, and I'm not gonna spam people all day long with photos of every tick that goes away. It's just, it's not really. I don't think anybody, I don't think I'd have any followers. So
I think you do a great job on your page. Derek says here, Ron thought he got away. Now he's in extra innings.
Right.
It did happen. You were almost relaxed.
He was literally undressing the backside. He was off.
And Comix says he's not trying to break balls or anything like that. He just wanted to know.
It's the question that should be asked, but just like CGC doesn't want to get into why they decided to do what they're doing, not making it a public issue, etc. I sit here and go, listen, I'm a small business. I want my customers to be happy, but I don't want to sit here and make promises and say, hey, if I damage your book, I'm going to buy it, or it's just, I will do what I do to make my customers happy. And luckily it doesn't happen often, but yes, I have purchased books from customers. I can give you scenarios of what happened. I've had modern books mostly have been the issue. They get a little heat on them and you expect the color on the cover to be tight and fast. And, you just touch it and all of a sudden you put a fingerprint on it. I've had that happen, an otherwise 9.8 book. And like, oh man, I just put a fingerprint on the ink on this book by touching it. Well, that was hot. I didn't realize that doesn't happen on an 80s book. It happens sometimes on newer books. There's some weird publisher that put out this book called Hail Crow. And it was weird. It was a little bit of an unusual book, but I'm like, I'm going to turn the heat down. I don't know how this is going to react. And I turned it down what I thought would be safe. And unfortunately, it was an entirely black and white interior of the book, and all the ink transferred from page to page on the inside.
Oh, wow.
I learned that, that's not a book I can press, and I apologized. I think the customer paid $50 for it. I bought it from him. If anybody wants it, I'd be happy to sell it to him for 40. But I do have a Hail Crow one that has ink transfer on the interior pages because of that. So that stuff happens. It's usually on these, off-brand publishing books that have these special inks, that or special paper that you don't see before, and you don't know how it's going to react. So unfortunately, I have not seen every book yet. And
Yeah.
modern books come out all the time. I've learned on my own Chromium cover book, you can't press those.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
X-Force Alpha 1. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that sucker curls up like a newspaper. You put a little heat on it, so don't press that book.
No, don't do that.
Now you learn by doing. You learn, unfortunately. So
Fuzzy has said that one thing that he tells customers when doing masonry work is the work I do is the same quality I would do on my own house. It's an effective way of putting it.
Yeah, absolutely, great point. I'd probably do a little better work on customers' books because, I know somebody is looking over my shoulder, always. Somebody wants to see that book perfect, and I want to present it to them perfect.
Right.
Matt Rossi's put, if a presser can figure out the secret sauce to press chromium, they would be a millionaire. True.
Agreed.
Can the lethal protector one
Yes.
foil be pressed?
No problem. It won't come out perfect if it has veins, but those light bends that you get at the Staples, you can smooth out some of those veins and texture changes. You may even be able to smooth out. I even have a photo on my Instagram of 2 lethal protectors that had both corners, bottom right corners bent. That got 9/8. They weren't perfect. I'm going to be honest. If you look closely, you could still see a little bit of texture change in the foil, but they both passed for 9/8. So yes, I've pressed plenty of lethal protector ones, and I have a newsstand I just got back in this last batch. That's a 9/8. You hear that, Manu? 9/8 newsstand lethal protector one.
I love that. That is a book that comes and goes. I am still waiting to figure out a way to get into a 9/9 newsstand of that book. A 9/9 direct is fantastic.
Let's talk about another controversy. That's your fault, I think. Also, this whole 9/9.
There might be some truth to that. I had actually been speaking to CGC about that.
You are a stir of brown substances, I think, aren't you?
I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it happened.
Thorn in the side.
But you know what? I'll accept it. I'll take it. I'm just gonna lean into this stuff. Like it's fine with me.
Poor Matt Nelson on Monday is gonna go, oh no, Manu did a video.
There's the CGC 100% badge right there. One day I do want to have a drink with Matt. Just hang out with Matt, have a drink with Matt, and see what sort of conversations come out after the drink with Matt. But it won't be recorded, so
it might take a few drinks, but I'm sure you can hear stories.
Yeah.
Manu, do you ever go to any cons?
No. And I did just go to San Diego Comic-Con, but not for the con. I went because I had a meeting with PSA and a dinner to attend. So I went, I went for the purpose of that. And I was back on a plane 6 a.m. the next morning. Even though it was wonderful being there, absorbing the energy of the con, I did not actually enter the con.
Okay.
No, thanks for the invite.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm joking. Donny Boy McCoy collects.
Yeah,
have you graded books that are really scarce that you don't have any recent past sales data, but has the opportunity to sell for $2K? How does CGC charge you for grading?
Yeah, I have found, I have a customer that sends me fairly recent, ratio books and all this. He tells me all the time, this book is worth $750. This book, I'm like, okay, but there's no sales data really to support it. That's what he's going to list it for. So you never really know. And I have found, when I charge for it, I only charge an upcharge if I know that book sells for that. So I look at the 3-4 most recent sales, eBay, GPA analysis, whatever, and I decide, okay, yeah, this obviously, sells for $1,000. Upcharge applies. CGC seems to let quite a bit slide, though. They let quite a bit go by over that I think would apply over that $400 limit.
May I tell you a story?
By.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I would like to tell you a story of one sliding, one not sliding. But I'll tell you a story. 2 submissions, same time. Malibu Sun 13, not the error version where the 9/8 is roughly $4,000, 3 to 4. And then an error version where the 9/8 is, previously sold for $21,000. Right now, one is at auction at Heritage. Who knows what it's going to sell for? Not mine. My copy is here, but I have it somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000, right? So both sent raw, obviously for grading. Both achieved 9/8. The non-error, which has a price history, and you could actually, qualify it as a value, did get the upcharge. But the one, even the error has a previous price. Oh, maybe The story I'm telling you is I didn't get upcharged on the $20,000 one, but perhaps it's because the $21,000 sale is actually a yellow label and they don't have a blue label sale for that book. There is no blue label public sale for that book. There's only 3 in existence, and 2 of them happened recently. So maybe that's why the one that had more sales did not slip through, but the $20,000 one, they didn't get a couple hundred extra bucks out of me. You know, I'm grateful for the work they did. They encapsulated those both properly, and that was several months ago. I haven't submitted a book in a very long time, but just an anecdote, a story.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, so Comic Journey, he said he was going away, and that not for me to ask softball questions, but
James will not disappoint you, Comic Journey.
He's crept back in to say, ask him if microchamber paper actually works, and if it does, up to what era does it make a difference?
Does that refer to the archival paper that they are sticking in the books? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the little white piece of paper.
The little white piece of paper that are in the books.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how much it works. However, I will tell you an anecdote as well. Recently, of a certain book of a certain 1973 vintage that had foxing on it, quite a bit of it. It was encapsulated. I was asked to CPR it, and I opened it up, and I don't have the photos available, but if I find them, I'd be happy to share if you're interested. But the archival paper was covered in mold.
In mold?
Well, a discoloration to the fact that, like, it was, you know, it was, you know, I mean, foxing to some degree is mold.
Picture. Whenever you have an opportunity, I would love to see a picture.
I'd be happy to, but you know, it's
picture of mold.
So it kind of showed to some degree that the foxing had gotten a lot worse since it was graded, because that archival paper was also severely compromised. It was kind of gross, both sides, front and back. So, you know, it kind of scares you, because you're like, oh man, you know, this original grade was probably done before the foxing became as extensive, you know. So what are we looking at now, you know, was the question. The grade stayed the same, luckily, but you know, obviously there was probably considerably more damage. So, you know, maybe it was offset by the pressing to some degree, you know, the other repairs that we were able to make done on it. So
that leads me to 2 thoughts, because I don't need this on. That leads me to 2 thoughts. One is, they do recommend, I think previously they have, I don't know what their stance on it is anymore, and I don't think anyone ever did this to begin with, but they recommended every 10 years to change, to re-encapsulate your book, because the microchamber paper is absorbing any gases and whatever the hell it's supposed to do, and it's now useless, right? It's absorbed as much as it can. You need a new piece of paper in there.
And that was in this book. There was plenty of absorption, big wet area, you know, near the spine, little less wet near the edges.
Right, and then, so there's that, and I don't know. Stained. And so there's that. And I don't know how many people re-encapsulate their book. I mean, what a pain in the ass. What if you amass 1,000 book collection? No one's going to re-encapsulate those as a joke. Even if they should, it's still a joke. It's not an expectation, not a reasonable expectation. But the other thing that brings to mind is that once the book is graded and encapsulated, that's what it was that day. How you store that book determines how it can still deteriorate within the encapsulation, of course.
Sure, leaving your living room with that sunlight shining on it in Florida, it's not going to look the same.
There's the color gone.
Gone.
You put it in humidity, there's the rust showing up. And anything can happen in that encapsulation. It's not bulletproof. It's not safe to foolishness. You know, like you can't be irresponsible with it. And maybe now, Ron, we will let you go, because if we get into this PSA part of this conversation, I'm going to have 1,000 more questions for you.
Excellent.
You know, so thank you so much again.
Thank you, gentlemen, once again.
Thank you very much.
Evening. Thank
you. Take care, buddy. See you soon.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Oh, that was nice of him to come back around, and then we kept up for like an extra 20 minutes asking the questions. That's fantastic.
I genuinely think it was longer than that. It might have been half an hour.
It might have been, man. It might have been. When we get to talking, I don't know how. And thank you for everybody. Thank you everybody for the questions.
I've got to give
great questions.
I've got to give a shout out to Comic Journey, because he is his channel. He does these interviews, and they are absolutely amazing. So I just want, please go check out his channel. His style of interview is second to none. So please go and check him out.
Yeah, you will hear his voice, but he speaks with his hands. Once you watch his channel, you'll understand what I mean by that. If you don't already know, you probably already know. But there's a thing about him, and you will learn it very quickly. I think he's the only person that does that, and it's fascinating. So yes, definitely check out his content, and shout out Journo. He just did an interview, an interview with Journos,
Yeah,
and I haven't actually watched that one yet, but I'm a fan of
it's good.
Journo, so I want to. Yeah,
Journo is very passionate, very and CJ just doesn't hold back. He just literally he'll ask any question, and he'll invoke a reaction.
yeah, yeah. You have JSS just sent a super chat, so
Oh,
that's
thank
amazing.
you very much, JSS.
Thank you, thank you. Matt Rossi
Recently got in.
says,
I was going to say, JSS Booking reached out into my DMs recently. I just want to say thank you. He's a really
nice.
nice guy.
We've had a lot of pleasant conversation, and so I hope you're doing well today, my friend. Matt Rossi, what's going on? And thank you for all of the wonderful comments earlier tonight. I wasn't able
Yeah,
to read all of them, but I
fantastic.
appreciate it. He says Manu brings up and we're going to get right into the PSA stuff, and I'll be quick about the PSA stuff. I'll hit you with the hard hitting stuff. We won't exchange too many pleasantries about it. I'll just give you the information that you guys might not be aware of now, and then we'll touch on that again later. And so Matt Rossi says Manu brings up almost an existential thought. All comics are slowly deteriorating. They're made out of dead trees. So at a certain point, regardless of the book, that grade will not be correct. That is a very interesting thought for us to all sort of sit with and think about, because you're right. I mean, we are fighting against time to a certain extent, and I don't know if that seems like a fool's errand. So,
but do you think that them being preserved in the slabs will keep them for longer, or?
I think possibly longer, but they're not preserved in a slab. I think that's a misconception. I think that's I mean, as a company, you would want to send that messaging as a point of marketing, but from a point of logic, they're not preserved because there's human error. You could put it in humidity, you could put it in heat, you could put it in light. It's not going to save against it. The CGC slabs aren't even reflective of UV rays, so
Yeah,
they're not preserved. And then there's also this misconception that if it's in a slab, you can ship it. From my personal experience and what I advise to anyone or tell anyone is it's actually safer to ship raw books safely, as long as you know how to package and so on and so forth. Because the slabs themselves, a lot of people get a book in and they just think as long as the slab is not cracked, well, we're safe. Well, that's not necessarily true. If a box with a slab in it takes impact, depending on how much absorption or cushion there was around the slab, that energy has to transfer. So even if the case doesn't break, it could
yeah,
send the book within the slab flying into one of the corners. And there are two different sorts of inner wells that CGC uses, perhaps three, but the most common one has these cutouts on each corner that's supposed to protect the corner itself. But the cutout can actually dig in about a ½ inch into the book if the book flies
yeah,
up against it too hard. And all of a sudden you have a book that says 9.8 or 9.9 or whatever the
yeah.
case might be, and it actually is not that. So this book, this slab is not a means of protecting. You still have to know how to protect it, and that's an unavoidable truth.
Yeah, we've sorry for just cutting you short there, but
Yeah.
Danny Paul has sent in a super chat. Thank you, Danny. I know
Oh,
Danny's a massive supporter of the channel. I really appreciate you honestly really don't have to do this. It's great.
I
He's
want to
put
read
this.
his. Yeah, please read it. Yes, please.
You can, okay. This has been incredibly informative. So I thank you both for bringing this to our attention, especially those weren't in the loop like me. If it wasn't for people like yourself, Manu, I wouldn't have known. I was too busy with my head like elsewhere within the comic community, and this has been an eye opener. Like seriously.
Danny, thank you. James, thank you. I was under the impression that more people knew. I don't know what inspired me that evening to make the story, but I made the story and it came to my attention that too many people don't know. And so I'm glad that this conversation is happening.
Yep, 100%.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Danny. Matt has put the staples will eventually erode. I think restoration and conservation will get more acceptable for older comic books. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think you might have a great point. And I actually, man, this is a bit of a sad. I won't get too off track, but there was a considerable purchase that I was looking to make the other day, and I didn't have the benefit of examining the book in person, but
Oh,
the individual, no, I didn't actually make the purchase because the individual sent me a lot of pictures and I did notice a speck of rust on the staple. And this is an already encapsulated book. And to me, I just thought, I don't know if that rust is going to migrate. I can't
yeah, yeah.
pay the non-rusty price on the potential of the rust spreading. So unfortunately, I have to walk away from that book, and I'm still a little sad about it. But I think ultimately I might have made the right decision by not committing to that purchase.
So let's just get into.
Let's talk PSA, guys. Okay.
Let's get an update on what's going on with PSA comic grading from the 9.9 Newsstand minute.
I appreciate it. So we'll just a quick. Everyone knows they announced comic book grading, right? Maybe 2 months ago now, whatever it was, that was announced. And the prototype slabs, James says, PSA, PSA, PSA. We've come to that portion of the conversation. And thank you everybody for hanging out with us. And like I said, I'll stick to the top line stuff, and we'll do a more in-depth discussion later. So they've announced comic book grading. They're looking to actually officially allow for submissions early in 2025, first quarter, presumably as early as January, potentially. During SDCC, they showcased and released their prototype slabs. They're not graded, but the books are encapsulated in the first iteration of their slab. And it was a collaboration that they did with Kith, the fashion line, the pop culture brand, if you will. And these are them. These are the prototypes slabs with custom books that were created for this venture with Kith and Asics. These were paired up with a box of shoes, and then you get a randomly inserted comic book, different rarities based on the color. The character, of course, correlates to the shoe that you buy. And the reason for them to do this was, one, to put something cool out there and make a dope announcement at SDCC that, hey, we're getting into comic books, but also it was to get feedback. I had the benefit and the pleasure of handling these slabs months prior, or maybe about a month and a half or 2 months prior. And I had some feedback to give. So we knew some things that we would be anticipating, and a few other people had the ability to handle them as well. Shout out Swag. We handled them together as well. And so there was some feedback. And so we knew what we were getting into. And of course, with the label, that was definitely going to be a place where we knew we were going to get a lot of criticism, because even PSA from the card side, a lot of people sort of, critique that label. I love that label for a lot of reasons. I'm going to keep my opinion out of this. I just want to present some of the facts. And a lot of the community said, they suggested a bunch of changes. Now, the reason I bring all that up is just to bring us up to speed and to say, well, PSA has listened, and they are actively listening, and they're making changes. So one of the things about, and also Neo, shout out Neo Cards and Comics. He is in communication with PSA as well. And Elizabeth is the general manager of pop culture at PSA. She's actually heading this up. She's responsible for this. She's assembling the team and everything, that's happening with comic book grading at PSA. She has a lot of things on her plate, but she's great with her responsibilities. And she and Neo actually just did an interview on Neo's channel. So some of the information that I'm going to be communicating with you, you can also take in long form through that interview. It's a beautiful interview. And then I'll give you some tidbits that aren't available there, but that's just because I had an independent conversation with Elizabeth prior to that interview happening, right? But since we've run so long in this episode, if you want it at length, Neo's channel, there's a beautiful interview with Elizabeth there. It's wonderful to listen to. They did a great job. But we'll jump into some of the things that may or may not be mentioned there, but also I'll highlight some of the things that are. So, that I heard Neo's voice. That was Neo's voice.
I was just getting the link for the chat.
That's awesome. Rob, what up? So in terms of them taking in some of the feedback, the case is larger. The prototype case is larger, both in height and width, and it's substantially heavier than any other case available on the market, which of course it was met with a bit of hesitation and reluctancy to accept, because we have boxes that hold our slabs, and CGC and CBCS kind of fit into the same everything.
The
there are some
BCW boxes,
BCW boxes, the regular cardboard boxes, so on and so forth. So they took that. Oh, Neil's with us. What up, my man? What's going on? Awesome.
Thanks for joining.
Definitely check out that video. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I got an ad. Oh, that's fine. I don't need to. Well, let me get back into the chat. All right, there's the chat. And so they took that feedback, and they realized, okay, for the I use the word retail ready, retail level come January, when it's time for us to submit a standardized sized case that works with all of our containment devices, and it's just what people are used to. So they've taken that feedback and they have done so. They are
Brilliant.
engineering a case that is almost the exact dimension. I mean, how I have it here, the exact words that I have, I'll just read those. It will, okay, here we go. The new industry standard case will be the exact same dimensions, and this is from Elizabeth, will be the exact same dimensions as CGC and CBCS standard holders, allowing for easy storage and management. It will also weigh several ounces lighter, not to the competition, but to this heavier prototype case. We are in the middle of production and expect to have the new size available at launch. In addition to the, also, this larger case is going to remain available. This is going to be considered their premium offering. So if anyone wants to have the heavier, more substantial, possibly more protecting sort of environment for their expensive comic books, they will be able to pay for the premium service of having it encapsulated in this. But for many of us, the majority of books being graded, go into a regular size slab. They are working on that. They've listened to us. That's going to come out. I haven't seen it yet. No one has seen it yet, but I look forward to seeing it once it is available. And I look forward to communicating to you guys, like, you know, what I think about it. So hopefully I have the benefit of being able to get some access to that.
Manu,
So that was the first
have they said what the price difference will be in that?
No, in fact, they haven't talked about prices at all in any regard yet. Well, not to me, internally, I'm sure they have, but I can only imagine that it is in their best interest and it's their desire to be extremely competitive. You know, the least amount of obstacle you put in the way of acquiring a new customer is going to be best, right? So I'd assume that they're going to be very competitive. Now, right in line with that, that update is the label, right? So label adjustments are being made. And as soon as I'm able to get a mock-up, I'm going to be asking them for it aggressively. And hopefully they, you know, they're able to share it with me as soon as it is ready. I really want to see it, but adjustments will be made. Now, things to know. They are not going to get away from their design identity. It is going to remain with the red border. That is PSA's signature, of course. And, you know, there's been some feedback from comic book, you know, people, as if I'm not a comic book person, but I didn't have the same feedback. There were like some old school dealers that voiced the opinion that red is bad. I don't really have that association.
No.
So I took that consideration. I get it. You know, all the grading companies have moved away from red. Blue is neutral. Everything is kind of universally blue. And then the colors indicate other things. But this label is going to remain this color. And I'm fine with that. I love it. Oh, I got to leave my personal.
It's kind of their trademark, isn't it? To be honest, it's like
it's their brand. It's their trademark. The red ring, the red border around a white label is their trademark. But James says red equals bad. I mean, I've heard it said a few times, but let's change the narrative. It's going to have to be shifted if we're going to adopt PSA. So I will be happy to try to play a role in shifting that narrative. Oh, he just means in general, ready, like stop sign, so on and so forth. I get it. I get it. But in this context, I guess it just means PSA. And over time, we'll decide what that means to the comic book community. And hopefully PSA is a great addition, a welcome addition. And hopefully they do really, you know, well by the community.
Well, let's be honest, it's never really affected their cards having the red.
Oh no, they're the leader in cards. They've been the leader for a good while. They passed up Beckett BGS a little while ago, and they've maintained their standard their position at the top. So perhaps the same thing can happen here, but they definitely give CGC a run for their money. And so there are going to be some adjustments made to the label. They're going to be tweaking the placement of things, the size of things, to try to make it visually more legible from a distance, and also just better looking in general, right? So they're just things that they're going to try to do to make it better looking. And I look forward to seeing what that is. Naj, what up? What up?
Naj, thank you for joining us, our good friend.
So yeah, absolutely. Always lovely to see you here. And your interview with Naj, your episode with Naj, that was so good. So let me just touch on a couple. Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's a really good question here from Derek, if you don't mind.
Please. Yeah.
Any update on the graders? We've heard that Mark Wilson, but what about the rest poached from CGC or CBCS?
This is a great question. And the way that I asked this question to them to just see where I was, I knew they're not done yet. Done hiring, not done trading, not done putting together the guidelines, all of that. But I did ask, like, how's Mark Wilson settling in? You know, how's the team coming together? And it's kind of what we imagine. Mark Wilson is working hard, getting, you know, the protocol put in place, getting whatever needs to be written for training guides, so on and so forth. And they are assembling that team. You know, hiring is happening, training is happening, but it's kind of early in that process, right? Like, so We don't know any of the other names associated at the moment, so on and so forth, but they're working towards it. And as soon as I know more about that, I definitely want to share that with you. But unfortunately, I don't. But I think I don't know more about that because there isn't much more there yet, concrete enough to share in any sort of a meaningful way. Poach from CGC, CBCS. I don't know where the graders are. I know Mark Wilson came from CBCS, of course, but I don't know where the rest of their hiring is happening at the moment. I did speak to some pressers that have applied, but I don't know what the application process is like, and I don't know how much hiring has happened. Train from scratch, great question. I will get those answered for you, Derek. That is a guarantee.
Good question.
Same different guidelines as CGC. They're going to be very similar, right? So they're from everything that I understand and from everything that I've been told, they're keeping the exact same grading scale. Like even the 1.8 at the bottom, that odd 1.8 that exists between a 1.5 and a 2, and then the 0.8 never repeats itself again until 9.8. But apparently they're keeping all of that, including the 9.9 and of course the 10. They're actually really excited about the 10. Elizabeth speaks about that at length on Neo's interview with her. And I've spoken to her about it at length as well. And, you know, listen, they're in the business of 10s. It is in their brand to give 10s. I'm a little scared of 10s, but if the 10s are 10s, then yes, they should have a 10 on them. It shouldn't be this, the way it's been done historically by certain comic book companies is like gatekeeping certain grades. We know for a fact, beyond a shadow of a doubt, 9.9s are out there encapsulated as 9.8s. In fact, I'll bring up something Mark Wilson said. He said it on an interview that he did he said it on an interview that he did on Comic Book Invest.
Invest.
That's the channel's name. That is his son, Dave, who is a comic book entrepreneur, has his own business in comic books and has a YouTube channel. And he said something about this because Mark Wilson divides, and I'm sort of speaking out of turn because I'm speaking for him in a sense, but I'm trying to repeat what not only I heard on that interview, but also what I spoke to him about in person at a dinner recently. And so because I was very curious about this, he sort of separates grading into two sort of categories, right? And I'll use my own word, let's call it like casual grading and professional grading. And by casual grading, I sort of mean like myself and collectors that we might be grading 4 or 5 books in a day, and we have all of the opportunity to look at everything from every angle, spend time with it, even come back to it the next day and decide what it is. Do we want to submit it? What do we think it is? Well, professional grading is about a schedule. It's about a timeline. It's about getting these things done. Employees are being paid to grade books, and there is a stack of books behind them. And so you have to be quick, you have to be efficient. And there was this thing that started to happen. It happened before the pandemic as well, whenever there's a rush, but during the pandemic, it was very pronounced. There was a backlog of books that was enormous. So even if a book was deserving of a 9.9, it wasn't given one. Why? Because a 9.8 is the safe grade. Rather than scrutinizing the book, rather than giving it to another grader to verify your opinion of a 9.9, just give it the 9.8, send it out. Why? Because a customer is not going to complain about a 9.8. We've been conditioned to expect a 9.8 and celebrate like it's our lucky day if it's a 9.9. But the truth is, we were lied to. There were plenty of 9.9s that we should have gotten that we didn't. And I use the example all the time of Ultimate Fallout 4, 5,000 9.8s, no 9.9s. It's not because there aren't any 9.9s. That's because they got 9.8s on them. That's why. And so that's an interesting thing there. And we're going to see how Mark Wilson brings his experience from CBCS, his experience as a previous dealer and a grader into this space, and how much of this is going to be reflective of professional grading or the grading that the collector would be, you know, as an idealist would want to happen. But much of that's going to be determined by the processes that they put in place at PSA. You know, do they get a backlog? Do they have a good process, right? So I'm going to leave it to him to speak more about, but any opportunity I get to talk to him, I'm always going to ask him about what's happening with 9.9s and stuff. So Derek, great question. Once I have more information, I'll definitely share that with you. I'll go through some more, but is there another question we can answer? And then I'll go through some more of my stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of being conditioned to 9.8s, Jason Parker is known for his catchphrase, "It's a 9.8. It's a not bloody 9.8."
Right. Yeah.
So thank you, Jason. He's done a super chat, $9.99. Amazing, but you really didn't have to. Thank you for that. Naj has asked, is it just me who got fatigued with the grading thing and decided to not send books on my own until the climate conditions got better? It just feels a little too risky.
I love this question, and Oh, wait, did you want to answer it? I'm sorry. I'll wait for you.
No. You can answer it. You're better
Oh,
suited for it than me, mate. Don't worry.
I just had this conversation last night, and there's fatigue, but there's also just the energy shifted, with all of the things, that the risk that there is, and the disrespect that seems to be handed out from the great, like their lack of care and concern for the things that we are caring
Yeah.
for, care for and concerned about. It's left a bad taste in my mouth. It's like, why am I submitting you a book that I really care about, paying you, and you don't even care about doing your job correctly? So that's created some hesitancy. um, I wouldn't. I personally don't define that as fatigue, but I imagine that is a way to qualify it as well, or to categorize it as well. But for me, it just the energy changed. It became less fun. I was less
Yeah.
excited about it, and this is my personal opinion. I don't mean to burden anybody with it, but to a certain degree, I somewhat look at a CGC book, and there's just something. There's
You
something
think there's
about it.
something wrong with it?
It's just, I've been turned off a little by it. Like, I know what's behind the curtain, and the label and the brand doesn't mean the same thing to me anymore. So I just feel differently about it. Am I still a grader? I am. Have I been grading? No. Am I excited about competition, kind of cleaning this market up a little bit, this space up? I am. Am I anticipating having fun with PSA? I am. But I'm optimistic about that. I'm anticipating having a good time because I want it to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be up to PSA to do right by us. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm optimistic, and I want to help it get into a place as much as I can help. I don't, in any official capacity, work for PSA or anything like that. I'm just very fortunate to be able to have a line of communication, and hopefully they see some benefit in the feedback that I communicate to them from the community, and how I communicate their messaging to the community. And maybe
Yeah.
they keep me in the loop, but that's up to them. They could kick me to the curb whenever they want. I hope they don't. PSA, I like you guys, and thank
Yeah.
you for everything that you've allowed me to do so far.
I think that what's good though is that they're engaging with those conversations with, customers and the community. Like,
Yeah, no, I
um,
think that's awesome. I think that's really awesome. We hadn't seen it like that before. Like, literally, we complained about something, they changed the something, right?
yeah,
So I'm kind of a huge supporter of that. If you
yeah,
want to put out a product that we want to buy, that works for both people, both parties involved. So Naj, you're not the only one. I've spoken to people that have felt fatigue and kind of turned off by the process, and they're just waiting for something great. I love what Palm Beach Comic Presser has said to us here. Thank you for still being with us. He said, I am excited to see PSA enter the market and the updates that Manu reports are promising, right?
yeah,
So I appreciate that openness to it. And yeah, I will continue to support them, because I hope that they are going to be a great thing for us as people that enjoy grading and pursuing grades in books. I love this stuff. CGC bent my daredevil, Jose says. I'm daredevil number 1. I'm sorry, Jose.
sorry,
Uh,
buddy.
I do apologize for that. But hello,
Well
thank you for
said,
being
buddy.
with us.
No,
Oh, thank you, my friend.
I've got to say thank you, buddy, because without people like you, we wouldn't be getting these sorts of updates. You wouldn't get the sort of feedback, and you really are a top guy. Like, you are a genuine asset to this community. Like,
Uh, I can't tell you how much that means to me, man. I will
mate,
cry. Like, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
you've done more over the last, what has it been, 9 months maybe?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
That some people have probably done over 20, 30 years.
I don't know how to take that, but I'll take that as that makes me feel really good to hear, man. I really, really appreciate that. So thank
Just
you.
just keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
Let's
Good
keep
things are gonna
let's
happen.
keep doing it, man. I think over the last 8, 9 months, whatever it was, I feel like the community has gotten stronger. Like, we are more together. We're more able to express what we feel, and find support where we need it, and no one's sort of ashamed to say the companies did them wrong. Like, I
Yeah,
don't mean to be so negative, and I don't think I'm being negative, but I say that just to, for anyone that might take it that way, is, we pay the companies for a service. And there's this thing that used to happen where, when they did something wrong, we would be a little upset, but then when they fixed it, we would say, thank you for fixing it. Well, I kind of
yeah.
just wish it didn't go wrong to begin with. And then when they do something right, we celebrate them. But that's actually, they've been paid for it, and I'm not saying don't celebrate them,
It's
but
incompetence.
yeah, but hold them accountable to the same degree of of the amount that you clap when you get the grade that you want. You know,
Yeah.
Find some balance in there, and I'm a big proponent of that. Yeah.
JSS
Oh,
Booking has asked,
great question.
do PSA plan to offer signature authentication? I believe they do, don't they? They offer the auto.
That is absolutely right. It's already built into their business. The area where the cards and other items get authenticated is the same area that the comic books are going to get authenticated. And thank you, Naj. I appreciate that. And to take this a step further, so that's just a yes. That's just a simple, easy yes. They already do that. They're going to continue to do that. And this is going to lead to two questions or two things that I would like to add. A friend of mine, shout out Doom Card. Oh, he was previously known as Doom Card. His name is Don't Even Worry. Shout out. Perhaps he's with us, but if not,
Hopefully.
he has an incredible page, an incredible collection. He's an incredible member of our community, both in comic books and in cards. And he asked me a really great question a few weeks ago, and I said I would definitely get an answer for it. And he goes, is there any way, or are they thinking about authenticating sketches and remarks on comic books? And I thought, wow, I had never even thought about that.
Yeah, you forget about those things.
Yeah, and so I asked, and the answer was, no, we hadn't thought about that either. Is that something we should be thinking about? Like, no one had thought about it, and that's not a bad thing. They're focused on what they know needs to happen. This is a very unique sort of outlier of a question. And so it got them thinking a little bit. And I said, you know what? I'll think about this some more, but I will, after I sent the question, received an answer, I had some more thoughts in the meantime. So when I responded again by saying, but you know what? This is not something that the community is expecting or would be disappointed if it doesn't happen, because no other company offers anything like that. And then what I did was I called my friend Val. Val and Victoria run a company called Legacy Studios. Shout out to them. And they deal with artists, original art, sketch covers, all of this. So they're constantly submitting to CGC and CBCS and CGC to get the artwork encapsulated. And he was like, no. He said, no one verifies or authenticates. They use facilitators and witness programs. That's it. You have to grab a witness. They have to watch the thing being drawn, and then it's verifiable by them. And so that's what the other companies do. And so I communicated to PSA, like, you don't have to worry about that. No one's expecting that. And it seems like a very difficult thing to do, because Val gave a very interesting example. I don't want to say something I'm not supposed to, so I'll put it in my own words. Is what if you how do I say this without jeopardizing a certain company's credibility? It's very hard to identify if something has been added to art after the fact. You don't know if the art is entirely done by that artist, so it makes it nearly impossible to conclude that it is that artist's work if someone else had drawn something else on it somewhere in the process. That witnessing process, it isn't always seamless, is what I'm saying. So there are some concerns there. But the second part to this, which leads me to, I asked, and Neo very smartly asked the same question as well. I'm not surprised that Neo and I have asked some of the similar questions, because I hope to be sort of as, kind of inching up towards being as smart as Neo. So it makes me happy if I ask similar questions. But the question I asked was, so have you made any decisions about if the label is going to change colors when it's restored, assigned, so on and so forth? And the answer, simply as it is now, is no. There will be no color indication, and that's different from what we're used to with any of the other companies. But the answer is no. There will be no color changing on the labels. It will just be identified in the writing. Very simply. You have to read the label to know what that book is comprised of or not comprised of. So the information is there clearly, but you're not going to be able to say, oh, that's a purple label, and run away from it. That's not going to happen. And that's actually probably really great. And maybe it would change things for the industry, because that purple label, it could reflect, it could be for many reasons. And oftentimes it's for like a little bit of color touch or something. But before you even realize what it's for, a lot of people just shy away from it. It's been called, what is it called again? The plod, the purple label of death or something,
the purple
is the nickname.
Death,
and that's a bad association, right? Just because a book has a purple label doesn't mean you should avoid it entirely. Maybe you should consider why it's a purple label, and how much money you can save acquiring that book with the purple
Exactly.
label,
Yeah.
right? But don't just run away because it's purple. And so they aren't going to, as it is now, they are hoping not to go into color changing labels. Now, should that change, hopefully I find out and I can tell you guys, but right now there will be no changes in the color.
Okay, makes sense. No, I just said CGC is problematic. I fear sending anything their ways. PSA market is not clear yet, and CBCS has its own issues. That's correct.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
see any book for grading for last year. Started buying. That's exactly the same as me. I'm just
Yep.
buying already graded books, 100%.
Yep. And you know, we're relative to what we were buying them for 2 years ago, it seems like we're
Saving
getting
money.
great deals on books. So
Exactly.
you know,
But what I have noticed is, and I don't know if whether you agree with this, Manu, is that people are tending to prefer their books raw again.
yeah.
And you know, like the comic capsules and
Right.
like they're just appearing everywhere now. I know certain other
noticed.
YouTubers that I follow, they've stopped collecting slabs and they've gone the comic capsule route. Is that what do you make of that?
I think from my perspective, I think it's two things. I think the companies that provide alternate methods of self-encapsulation or containment, whatever you want to call it, I
Yeah.
think they saw an opportunity to double down on their marketing. And so they
Yeah.
took advantage, which created more awareness for products. Like the comic capsule people, they did outreach to all of the influencers and so on and so forth, and got sponsored, promoted all over the place.
Yeah. And
So
they came out with they've now done like a Silver Age to fit the Silver Age books in now, which are everywhere. You're seeing everywhere.
Right. And so they're capitalizing on the moment. And that moment is the second part of my answer. And that speaks to what Naj asked and what I said is the emotion and the sentiment surrounding the enthusiasm and optimism that we have towards grading has shifted to the negative. So
Yeah.
you have the sentiment changing where we kind of looking at plastic encapsulated books is like, well, what's actually in there? Like, did we get lied to? So that sentiment's changing, making us hesitant to submit. And that's making us reconnect with, you know, the purity of the book. And we're sort of cheerleading this idea of just having it raw and keeping it safe, because we are very capable of keeping a book safe. If you're not trying to sell the book, there's very little reason you have to grade the book. It's a personal thing, but grading is to identify, for most people, not a blanket
Market
statement.
value.
Grading is to put a grade on it so that your buyer on eBay doesn't have to think too hard before deciding what the thing is worth. That's what grading is for the most part. So if you're not selling it, you ain't got to grade it. The slab takes up more space and it costs you money. Just saying. So with the sentiment shift and the other companies that create alternate means of encapsulating, seeing that and marketing into that sentiment shift, well, that's what you have now. You have more people self-encapsulating and keeping books raw. And that, I think, is the reason why.
Matt Rossi has asked a question. The one thing that worries me about PSA is that Steve Borek, is that how you pronounce it? Said PSA called him to get his input and were dismissive and ended the call within an hour. Considering that Steve invented all the standards, it scares me that PSA seem to act like they know more.
Right. And I'm going to be, Matt, I know a bit more about this that I can't speak on. What you're saying is, I've heard Steve speak about PSA as well. He said something a bit different, but he did, vocalize the fact that it didn't work out between him and PSA. But he also said, if it could have worked out, he would have been happy to. There's just a reason that relationship didn't get solidified. And it isn't because PSA wouldn't have wanted to, but there's the conversation to have, and they weren't able to come to some agreement between two respectable entities. Is what I'll say about that. From what limited I know, I just had a little bit more exposure to that than this sentiment here. So I'm not saying you're not right, but there's a little bit more to it. I don't know the whole story, but maybe one day we'll just be able to talk at length to Steve about it. But Steve would have, from what I heard from him, would have been in support of it had it worked out between them. That's all.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. In regards to the authentication for signatures, like with we know as card collectors, you unpack some cards and you get like you get signature series or whatever in there, don't you?
Oh,
Those
pack
are
pulled autograph. Yeah.
pack pulled autographs. So
Mhm.
PSA will grade them and put that it's a genuine autograph, won't they?
They absolutely will. So PSA already, grades both pack pulled autographed cards as well as
Yeah.
aftermarket autographed cards are signed after the fact. And since I don't deal too heavily in autographed cards, I actually don't know if there's a difference on the label indicating between a pack pulled or an authenticated. Neo, if you are with us with your experience in cards, or anybody that's here with experience in autographed cards, if you can shed some light on that, that'd be great. I don't have two labels to compare, and I've never looked into it with any level of concern
That's
to
fair enough.
differentiate. But
Mhm.
they do encapsulate and authenticate both. But maybe
Yeah.
the pack pulled one doesn't even need authentication because it's known to be pack pulled. That's
Yeah.
where I might rely on someone else to provide some insight.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that comes down to the grading then, doesn't it? Like, they know that it's a genuine card from that, from that
And that's
company.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like you can opt to have an autograph graded or not. You could have the
Yeah.
card graded. So if you have a pack pulled autograph, you might just grade the card, or you might even say grade the card and the autograph. This gets a little too nuanced. I don't want to speak out of line
Yeah, you can't.
without experience on it. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but you can grade an autograph. Neo says yes, there is a difference. So again, I can't elaborate, but Neo is letting me know, Manu, shut up, bro. There is a difference. So until you learn
Thank
the
you, Neil.
difference, don't say nothing. I appreciate
Yeah.
that, Neo. Thank you. Um,
Just going through the comments, see if there's any more
yeah,
questions.
absolutely. And once we're caught up on comments, I will continue to talk about some of the stuff that I have here on my screen.
That's okay. Banana Ben's PSA have introduced a brand new case, and actually listened. So Derek is again, he's on point. Just look at the difference in the last few months. CGC banana bends have spread and been largely ignored by CGC.
Mhm.
PSA have introduced a brand new case, solicited feedback, and actually listened. They have, to be fair.
Right. It's
A
already
clear difference
very
between
encouraging.
a
Yeah.
clear difference when at the moment people are running to CGC to say the house is on fire, and they're
Right.
just not choosing not to listen. Whereas in
Yeah.
PSA are taking the time to speak to members of the community to kind of perfect what they want it be before they even put it out. It's not like they've gone, oh, here we go. This is what we're
Yeah.
doing. This is what
Yeah.
we've done. You can buy them now, and then people go, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't like." They're literally planning, in advance, which is really good.
I agree. And then one little tidbit. This is a question many people have asked, and it had been shared loosely, but I just wanted to ask to make sure. And the answer is yes. The cases are UV reflective,
Yeah,
and up to 99% UV. They're 99% UV reflective. So for people that know what that means, that's got to be a good thing because I don't think the CGC cases are at all. So there's definitely an added benefit there.
yeah,
And I do think I have to mention this, and so I'm going to out of all fairness because I have to.
okay.
Newton rings.
Yeah.
We talked about them,
Earlier.
in the context of CGC, how they may have done a good job getting rid of them. I think from time to time they might still appear. I really don't know, but it's one of the things that I would hope PSA can figure out a way to sort out. And early on, I did have that question, and they are obviously eager to make sure there aren't Newton rings. But
Yeah.
what happened? This is just a matter of fact, and it's important to provide the feedback, but it's important for us to set our expectations. So the prototype slabs started, images and videos started to make the rounds, and I, as well as other people that were scrutinizing, noticed Newton rings on
Yeah.
some of the prototype slabs. And I did ask that question. I was like, well, I noticed them. Other people paying attention noticed them. Are you guys aware? Is there a solution? And the answer is they are aware, and they're going to make every effort to try to eliminate them. It is not guaranteed that they will be able to eliminate them or not see them across the board. Like there might
Yeah.
be a book of a certain thickness in the encapsulation that is susceptible to Newton rings. It's just a possibility. So we cannot just make the statement that CGC, we can't just make the statement PSA cases are UV reflective and you won't get Newton rings.
Yeah.
We can't make the statement of you will definitely not get Newton rings, but we can make the statement that they are aware, and obviously they would hope to get rid of them. But it just has to be within the means of the engineering that they're putting into these cases and where there might be a trade-off to get rid of them. So we'll have to wait and see. But I did see some Newton rings, and we may see some later. I just don't know. But in all fairness, that's a thing that's important to me. So I just feel like it has to be said, and I obviously did ask the question.
Well, I think what everybody appreciates in this community for comic book collecting is honesty, a bit of transparency.
Yeah, definitely.
We know, obviously, we spoke earlier about with the banana curve slabs as they're being put.
Yeah.
We're no longer getting Newton rings, but your books are getting damaged. So
yeah, no, it's exactly right. And so they're making every effort to make adjustments so that the newly engineered cases reduce them further in the hopes of not occurring. And they do believe that their holders will have the occurrence far less than another companies would. So let's hope that is the case, pun intended. And another very good question, or a lot of people have asked this, and I wanted to get some clarity on to what degree is graders notes. They made the statement early on. I was aware that they do want to do graders notes as much as they can. So that was great. The feedback they got from certain people that they spoke to early was, you got to do graders notes. If you want to win over the consumer, consumers hate that other companies don't give you them. So give them, and they'll love you for it. Right. And so they made a statement saying every level of book will get graders notes. And that doesn't mean grades. That means like if it's a modern era, if it's a this era, that era, no matter what tier it is, they're going to give graders notes. But the question I had was one level further. I get it. Every tier of book will get graders notes. Does that mean every single book graded will get grader notes?
Yeah.
And the answer to that question is here somewhere. I'll put it into my own words. Okay, perfect. The simple way of stating this answer is anything that is not a 10 or near perfect will. That is what I'm being told. Everything that isn't perfect will identify why it's not perfect. And I think that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, that is all literally we ask for, really.
That's it. So let's hope. I mean, that's going to be really exciting. If every book has graders notes, that's pretty good.
I think the worst thing I've ever probably experienced with CGC is that 9.0s, there's no graders notes. You just like, well, there's a massive difference. Like why it's a 9.0 compared to, even a 9.2 or 9.4. It's frustrating.
I agree. Jet City Comment said, put graders notes on the back of the label. I don't know that that's going to happen, but that's a fine thought. I don't know that they're going to do that though.
But it depends. If it's an old book, there's going to be quite a bit of problems with it.
Yeah, that's true too. But as long as it's associated with the scan of the barcode thing or something, as long as it's accessible, which that actually is a question I should have asked, because I watched several of Neo's videos reporting on and talking about the graders notes at PSA as they pertain to cards. It's a newly implemented thing where cards have graders notes, but who has access to the graders notes was kind of a point of contention, I think is the right way to put it. Like the graders notes were only accessible by the submitter of the order. So if you bought a book on the secondary card on the secondary market, you can't put in that certain number and get graders notes. It has to be through the count of the submitter. Maybe they've changed that, maybe they haven't. I'm just referring to what I heard Neo say months ago. And so I should have asked the question if they are going to do that sort of implementation.
I don't think that would be favored.
That's not going to be favored. Absolutely wouldn't be favored. So I will make that note though, because that's a good note.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, years back, I think that was pretty much the case with CGC. You couldn't check the graders notes unless you had a paid account.
I remember that actually. If you had a paid account, you
correct
could
me
check
if I'm
it.
wrong. If in
No,
the chat, I
wasn't
think
there?
that.
You know what else there was? If I remember correctly, you could pay $5 for graders.
Oh yeah,
notes.
to
They
get
would ask you to
yeah,
pay.
100%.
I remember
That, but
that.
this was, we're talking years back, absolutely
Oh,
years
Matt
back.
Rossi just said it too. He says CGC used to do that. You used to have to pay $5 to read graders notes if you weren't the submitter. There you go. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll try to get some more clarity.
Yeah, that'd be good.
On that. But I am excited about graders notes. So
JSS Brooklyn has put, what about page quality, white versus off-white, etc. Some of the key off-white pages should be deducted.
Oh, that. No, I think they're going to follow the way that we have been conditioned to accept the grading and qualifications of books. I do not believe, especially coming from my assumption of what Mark Wilson is going to bring to the table from his learnings and his experience. I don't think that they're going to hold page color against the grade. It is just going to be identified as its own qualification, which is the page color. Now, one of the things that I was really enthusiastic about speaking about, and other members of the community were as well, it's like, well, since you guys are starting this from scratch, why don't you guys put centering against grade? Like if the book is miswrapped, if you can see the back cover on it, make that go against the grade the same way you do with cards, because cards have 4 criteria: centering, corners, surface, and edges, right?
Yeah.
And obviously comic books have far more criteria, but in what we're used to is a 9.8 can have a miswrap or not a miswrap. Now visually we make a decision as to aesthetically which one we like better, and oftentimes we pay more for the one that has a cleaner spine. You can't see the back cover, but it doesn't actually affect grade. So that is something that I had discussed, but that is not a boat that I believe they're going to be rocking. It's going to be not held against grade, the centering, from my understanding, as it is now. I do not believe they're going to change
that. Matt Ross has put, oh, hell no, Manu. I don't want any grading based on corners, wraps. The production
it is different,
of comics versus
right.
cards is much different.
It is different. I will admit, I do want a world where the wrap matters to the grade, but at the same time, I'm not worried about it, because we make that personal differentiation ourselves. If we're willing to pay more for one that looks better to us, that's our personal grading happening. We're already doing it. We can see that. We don't actually need to be told that. So I understand where Matt's coming from, and that's why I'm not bothered if that doesn't get taken into consideration.
Have you got anything else that you've got on your notes, or?
Yeah, actually, but what I do want to say is, since I don't want this episode to run too long, and I do want to be revisiting conversations like this with updates as I have them. But for more, you can certainly enjoy the entire conversation on Neo's channel, and that way that is save us some time, and I won't be too redundant, right? Because there are a few tidbits here that are unique to the conversation I was having, but much of this can be heard at length with some visual accompaniment of 2 people having a conversation on Neo's channel as well. I guess we're having a conversation too, but we're actually having an interview with each other. So
no, definitely.
The
chat, I've just got to say, the chat this evening, this afternoon, have been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody, for your wonderful questions. Honestly,
it has been a real pleasure, actually. No, before I for tonight, before we close the PSA conversation, I will just do a quick scan of things that I think might be worth mentioning this evening while our friends are still with us. So,
well, what I will say while Manu is doing that, later this evening, or for yourselves over in the US, there is going to be a fantastic stream between Gem Mint Collectibles and Sticky Goose Comics. I believe that's at, oh gosh, is that at 9 p.m. for you guys? EST?
Wait, that's tonight, or did it just start 24 minutes ago? I don't remember. What time was it supposed to be?
It better not. I think it's 1 o'clock in the morning for me. So I think that's what, 5 hours. So I think that's like 8, 9 o'clock for you guys.
Remember when I got worried the other day and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm missing the stream. I made plans. And
Yeah.
you're like, no, buddy, it's on Saturday. Well, guess what I did? I booked another stream for myself this evening. So I'm actually not going to be able to watch it. I'm
Oh man.
recording. I'm recording with our friends Elusive, what up? Soul Collectibles, what up? RMS, what up? The four of us are recording a show tonight, and that's going to air later, but we're having a conversation this evening.
Oh,
And
brilliant.
so I think I'm going to miss it, but I will catch the replay. But dang, okay.
Please say hello to Ryan from RMS for me. He's a really nice
Absolutely
dude.
will. Absolutely will. Absolutely will.
Yeah, at 8 p.m. EST, JSS Brooklyn. JSS Brooklyn, I will see you in the chat, good sir.
Oh, I will be in the chat then. That's 5 p.m. my time. I'm not recording until 7 p.m. my time. Friends, I will be there.
Everybody
Gem and
wins.
Sticky? Come on, that's going to be fun, man.
I'll be honest with you, Manu. I don't think there's probably two YouTube channels at the moment who are as prevalent as those two. Like, so those two coming together is quite, especially in the comic book community.
It's really good, especially how it all comes together, right? It comes together with Gem sort of being offended by Sticky, and then understanding that Sticky kind of like intentionally offends everyone, and then Sticky being, you know, a very intelligent person, being able to communicate clearly, having his persona as well as his authentic personality. They're both sort of authentic. I don't mean to take anything from him, but he knows he has a bit of a shtick. He knows what he's playing towards, and having them come together as two human beings just really shows that you can separate, you know, content and making fun of from disrespect, right? It's not necessarily always disrespect. Sometimes it's just a good time, you know, and that's how Gem took most of it, and that's what allows them to come together. And plus, Gem has shown a great deal of humility
100%.
lately. That's been really beautiful. So if Gem does happen to see this or not, I mean, we tell him in other places anyway, but shout out to Gem. Shout out Gem and Sticky. Sticky's doing a good job, you know, holding the whole comic book community hostage. Like, you know, you really cornered the market on that. You know what you're doing. And Mother Goose as well, his wife, the lawyer, she's incredible. Them together, a remarkable team. And Gem and his wife as well, Gem and Fee, an amazing team. And I think every morning they're back to doing streams in the morning. And when I do wake up and am able to catch them, I like hanging out with them. That's what it feels like. So shout out to both of them. And I've been watching Gem's content a long time. So I really like, you know, where he's at right now and what he hopes to do with this content.
He is like super approachable. Like,
great guy.
I pretty much message him every day. There's always something going on, or, you know, his live streams as well. Fantastic. I love them.
Palm Beach are very kind. Oh, dude, your episode with Gem. I mean, you know how I feel about it, but that thing was amazing, dude. The conversations that came out of Gem that night.
It honestly, I hope my wife is probably watching this, but I come off that stream with Gem, and like I opened the door and she was there, and she like ran up and hugged me. She went, that was absolutely amazing. Like, she was like super proud of me, and I was like, and I remember speaking to you like that same, like, you know, in very early hours in the morning, and you were sending me voice notes saying that was amazing. Like, I literally was so buzzing from it. It was incredible, and to get him on the channel at that particular time where he was quite vulnerable and honest, like, it was I would never ever forget that. It was a fantastic conversation to have.
I'd imagine it's so memorable for you. It's because it's memorable for all of us. I mean, I know Naj was watching it. We were in the chat. We were so invested in what was happening. It's a wonderful, wonderful episode.
Because he's like the OG comic book YouTube channel that everybody during the pandemic would, you know, I started an account in the pandemic. His channel was literally one of the first ones I clicked subscribe to.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Like
2020, when I first started consuming content, Gem and his statue reviews every single day, you know? And even when he started talking about, well, I mean, he was probably already, but I would even watch the omnibus episodes. I don't even have an omnibus, not a single one. I don't read them. I don't have them, but he made me like them. And I just wanted to hear his thoughts on them. So I used to watch all those episodes too.
Well, to be fair, I've actually bought my first omnibus. Well, I've pre-ordered it, which is, I would never ever dream of doing it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, no, What a fantastic guy. I look forward to that. What's what?
I think since that the interview with Neo is a great one, and I think a lot of our friends are going to enjoy consuming that. And I've touched on a couple of updates. Let me just think really quickly. I guess what I'll share here, because I will revisit this, we will talk about this some more, is just that PSA is working. They're working in the right direction. They're hiring. They're listening to feedback. They plan to be ready early 2025 for grading. Yeah. There are going to be, you could expect some more information, more announcements, probably around NYCC time, New York Comic Con. And I'll try to keep you guys posted. I'm going to do my best to not be, when there's something to say, we will say it. And so I'll keep you guys posted with anything that I learn or any questions that I think to ask. But maybe we'll just wrap up now. I wanted to just say hello to a couple of people real quick.
Of course.
Maybe we'll have like a shout out time for all of our friends in the chat. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope the information today was useful. I think it should be. And I think it's really important for us to be aware of these issues, the bending of the things, the grading of your books, what to look out for, holding companies accountable, all of that good stuff. And a big thank you to Palm Beach Comic Presser, Ron, for joining us.
He was
amazing.
Fantastic. Ron, absolutely fantastic, honestly.
Absolutely. Berkfam54 thank you for the kind words. Thank you for your incredible interview with Ron earlier today as well. More great content, more great information. James, thank you for having me on tonight. Thank you for
coming
everything on. Always.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Shout out to Justin, Spidey Hits. I was in San Diego with him recently. We had a great time. Always like to say hello to my friend.
I watched his video and that experience of you two first meeting was it was just pure joy, honestly.
It was great, man. It was great. It made me feel very happy in a way that I think only that sort of personal relation, it's different. It's different. Like I have moments of happiness, but that was one that I don't expose myself to too often, because I just I socialize in a virtual sense. But in the physical world, a very small circle. And if my friends and my family aren't immediately around me, I don't do too much traveling unless it's business, unless it's necessary. So for Justin and I to meet each other on the street, I mean, we had something to do that day, but we didn't have to meet up before. And Justin is all love, and it was just great. It was great to hang out with him prior to the thing that we had to do and afterwards. And meeting him for the first time was fantastic. So big shout out to Justin. Big shout out to all the friends that we shouted out already. Shout out Swag. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Shout out Neo. Shout out Elizabeth at PSA, the general manager of pop culture. A lot of this, I don't know if any of this would happen without her. So big shout out to her. Hope she's doing extremely well. And we'll pick up where we left off the next time we're together on the screen. I think that might be a good place to wrap it up.
I can't wait, buddy. So thank you everybody for watching. It's been emotional and it's been great. So we'll see you guys next time. Manu, you're the best.
You are, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Take care, everybody. Bye.